Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1. In between Recon, Beasty, and the Muslim versus Erik+Kelazhur+State. This is AoE4 Pro League Quarterfinals. As you see the civilization on the screen, we're jumping into game number 1 on Arabia. Red, yellow, and blue are going to be the civilizations for Recon's team. Green, purple, and teal is going to be Eton fans. So it is going to be a Rus-French-Mongols matchup, and it's a mirror. As we discussed before this game, it's going to come down to how these players are positioned relative to each other, whether or not the Rus players are flanks or pockets, or how the Mongol players are aligned compared to the opponent's French players. It's going to take a couple of moments until the game actually loads up over here, but we are getting used to this one.
Yeah, definitely. So I was like, oh, he's talking about it. Am I desynced by a minute or something? What's going on? It looks like we're both in the same boat on this one. And well, we're not going to see any boats on this. It would be quite odd and quite silly if boats were suddenly to rock up here on Arabia. But it looks like everybody's trying to connect to this and run their game correctly. Mirror matchups are. I know that some people will say, oh, you know what? I'm kind of tired of seeing mirror matchups all the time. But I get that. I feel you. But at the same time, there's not as many civilizations right now in AoE4 as you have in AoE2, where you might have been used more in, to see in the past few years. Understandable that this is the case, how it is right now. But hey, things will evolve in the future, and I'm sure that there'll be more variety added in. It's down to skill to open this series up. Lita, all yours.
With that being said, we're finally in game number 1. It took some time for the game to decide if he wants to load up or not. But down south, we're going to have Recon playing as the French in the pocket. To the left of him is going to be the Muslim playing as the Rus in yellow. And on the far right, Beastie is going to pick Mongols in red. Up north, it is going to be a Mongols pocket from Kelazhur in green. You will have a French flank for Erik in purple and a teal Rus flank for State. A lineup of civilizations that are expected, positions not so much. Oftentimes, in fact, in the overwhelming majority of the cases, you see the Mongols being a flank civilization, and it comes down to the French or the Rus being the pockets. This time around, you're going to have the French and the Rus both being flanks for Erik's team, and Kelazhur is going to have a Mongol pocket out here. Now, when it comes to Mongol pocket, you are expecting something other than an early aggression. In fact, you want to have a slower paced game, potentially a fast castle style approach, or Mangadai, which could be a very powerful unit to add to your army. Very, very underrated in 2v2s. It's expensive, but it's super powerful with their ability to keep shooting while it's moving.
That's true. And then there's always the conversation, whenever you mention Mangodai and there being Rus on us, like, well, how does it compare to horse archers? Horse archers are much cheaper. Should the Mongol really be focusing on that or go more towards his lancers to kind of combo with the Rus? So I want to hear your thoughts on that, Lita.
That is indeed the first question to answer. So, when it comes to the horse archers versus the Mangadai, because you are going to be encountering horse archers no matter what, your opponent has a Rus player as well. So, those are not necessarily great fights for the Mangadai because the Mangadai are a lot more expensive. They're also gold heavy unit as opposed to having no gold cost associated with the horse archers. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the Mangadai will give you a moving firepower, and this can be combined very well with any army, especially if your opponents or your teammates also have a lot of mobility. So, being able to pursue an army that's fleeing from you and just keep shooting at it as you go is a massive value for the Mangadai. So I'm curious to see if Kelazhur is going to make that decision to go for that. Meanwhile, Beast is going to do the good old-fashioned Mongol things. He's coming in with Spearman, and he's up against the French player. We all know where that could go. That could be towers coming in on the gold mine of Erik. Erik's got a backup gold mine all the way at the back, though, so I don't think that he has to be that scared of this one as of yet.
Yeah, we've seen the amount of work that those towers are, and I think a lot of people have felt the effect of Mongol kind of sieging you out with their own towers around. So, yeah, always something to worry about to keep in the back of your head. There's a bit of fight here with our bitey infantry, the wolf, that's trying to push that scout back. But hey, otherwise, this early game is going to go quite comfortably. School of Cavalry is coming up for our French player here up in the north at Erik. And otherwise, pretty comfy time. Everybody, Golden Gate going up for the Rus. Same for the School of Cavalry. Definitely expected here. And yeah, looking to see where this progresses from here, Lita.
At this point, the spearmen aren't attacking that mining camp just now. Love how Kelazhur is pulling his con to help his teammate here get some nice shots on those spearmen. Tower is coming up, and as you see, Erik already pulled his villagers. He's sending them all the way back. So he was expecting this push, and indeed it is coming in. Barracks now out for Kelazhur, though. I'm not sure if this was the original plan or this is just a reaction to what they're seeing from Beasty. But with those spearmen, he's gonna be able to push away Beasty's forces for the time being. Looking at the bounty situation real quickly, the Muslim is sitting at only 220, not so spectacular after 4 minutes. Whereas on the other side, State is at a whopping 390, so State has gotten a much better start with the Rus here in terms of bounty.
Well, that mining cap is burning and should go down pretty quickly here. It's a lot of extra boost in the early game cash-wise for our red side of Beastyqt+. And, oh, wow, okay. Well, that's even the con going down for the green side of Kelazhur. So not the best of spots to be in here with all spearmen still being intact and the con around them. And the outpost is just watching over that gold vein, making sure nobody steps out into it at any point in time. A pretty good start here for Beastyqt+, putting the pressure on his opponents to the north and Erik.
And this is what I was referring to before the game. If you're up against the Mongols and the French, you have to prioritize lumberjacking a lot more and make a preemptive tower, because if you got a preemptive tower, it's much harder to tower rush your golds. It looks like Erik wasn't expecting Beast to just loop around and hit that gold mine, and now Erik is in a bit of a trouble, although it's a clever move from him. He's going to see an unprotected tower over here, and he's just going to pull his scouts and burn that down, so by the time that gold mine at the north is getting denied, he's going to get the one back on the south. He's losing mining camps though, and that's going to give resources for Beasty for burning it down.
Yeah, that is the second mining cap that goes down. So is it 100 food, 100 gold that's being picked up out of this? Not too shabby at all. A lot of villagers coming down, also with some support from Kelazhur. That outpost will be burned down and taken out in this, and yeah, it makes sense that Kelazhur is the one going for the burning damage, so he can get the bonus and resources for himself. Good way of splitting up the dividing those actions between the two players, making sure everybody gets an equal bit out of it. But looks like we have a French player out with a Royal Knight and a Horseman here to help out against scouts on the other side. So at least Erik doesn't have to worry about his own base actually moving out, trying to damage the economy of his opponents. But otherwise, DeMusliM+RecoN, they're just sitting pretty. Beastyqt is making, what, 3 players run around the whole place just trying to catch him.
Exactly, he's delaying a lot of players. Now Kelazhur is burning down those towers, so he's getting some resources for it as well. But of course, this is delaying him quite a bit. He's up to Feudal Age, and there's an archer range from the pocket. I really feel like that's a Mangadai as an idea. State has gotten to 500 bounty, by the way, and he's already making ranges. He's getting close to Castle Age. Whereas for the Muslim, he's at 415 bounty, so he managed to catch up very nicely on that department. Now you still have spears coming in for Beasty as he's up to Feudal Age. No signs of any other unit being added. Whereas for Kelazhur, it's going to be archers for the time being only, so he just wants to repel those first few spearmen that are coming forward.
Yeah, I mean, at some point when you see that Beastyqt invested so much into his own spearmen and wanting to deal with them, archers, best way to go ahead with it. But still, even, what, 7-ish minutes in, Beasty's still here, harassing with his outpost, still has spearmen to deal with the Royal Knights on the other side. So, yeah, it's a great position for you to be in, as Beasty is still delaying this. There's 2 players in here, and Kelazhur is coming in. RecoN is going to be forced back, and the outpost will maybe burn, perhaps? No, they're being pushed back here. The spearmen can't really do much numbers-wise, but hey, they're occupying the TC in this case, trying to shoot at that outpost to try to destroy it. The spearmen keep on coming in.
Exactly, at this point, Beasty is all about that delay tactics, and that's basically meaning that RecoN is completely untouched, the Muslim is completely untouched, although we got some knights moving in though from Erik, because Erik doesn't really need to fight this one right now, it is Kelazhur doing the fighting for him, so his knights are free to go some raiding, He's actually very unlucky to hit the Recon's base from behind because the gold miners and the food villagers are all the way up front. But this still doesn't mean that he couldn't get a couple of villagers on that wood line. Looks like the reaction is fast from Recon though, so minimal casualties inflicted by Erik's counterattack.
So still that big fight up in the north, but yeah, it got a bit too slow here, and Erik's able to do damage. He's got 4 Royal Knights in total, with 2 more scouts that are kind of coming up behind just to try to absorb some attention or some extra TC fire. One of them ends up going down, but at least that push from Beastyqt+, at least the harassment has been cleared up on the north. Yet, you might be very curious to know that it's actually migrated down to the right-hand side to the east with 2 outposts and arrow slits also being researched on one of them that's been built up. Pushing into the villagers. Look, they're just taking so much damage here from the spearmen and the con in the back. One of them will go down. Second one is low in health, and it will go down as well. Archers will come in and do a bit of damage here to push those spearmen back. But for how long is the question? Long out of range. And 2 will already go down. Extra boost on that damage. Firing down into the archers. Still so close to going down. Just trying to buy time until the Royal Knight comes in. But look, at least Beastyqt is able to put that outpost to the north up and ready and has the Aeroslus upgrade on it. Done, ready to go.
Exactly. 2 forward villagers were cleaned up by the archers of Kelazhur though, so for the first time in this game, Beasty no longer has forward vills, so once those towers go down, it's gonna be a little more difficult to rebuild them. But he has been doing quite a lot of work here, delaying his opponents. Now I have a counterattack coming in from Erik, trying to burn down the Ovu. And as things stand, that Ovu is going to stay alive with the spearmen nearby, the Muslim and State. Both in Castle Age though, going for those relics already. 4 archer ranges opening for State, and for the Muslim, he is going for 4 as well. Already has a blacksmith going as well. So now we're going to see some horse archers hit the field. State is also bringing in a ton of carcasses to his teammate over here because apparently Erik isn't really able to access those berries. Those are wide open for raiding.
Yeah, I mean, when he's been harassed this whole time, you need to give that boost. We've seen that do work in the past where, hey, if your teammates being that boost for you, you're able to just collect those deer carcasses from very far away before you come back into your friend's base. It's going to be super helpful in just getting your economy to stabilize and get back into good shape, because there was a bit of harassment thrown in the way of Recon, but it did not do a ton of damage in comparison to what Beastyqt had done in pure kills, but also in time lost.
Exactly. Castle Age now coming in for Kelazhur as one of the Mongol players is aging up. Beast is already up to Castle Age here right now. So it is only the French players not in Castle as of yet. Both of them staying on 1 town centers for the time being. Kelazhur is having a very, very good food economy here. His teammate has been ferrying in deer for everybody, and that's definitely helping out the eco of both Erik and, of course, Kelazhur.
Well, finally an outpost is being burned down and taken away. The villagers can get back to work. There's just a few knights here that can do a bit of work, but might be time to call that one done. At the same time, knights, Royal Knights from the purple side of Erik are coming in to raid that gold vein to the south via the step readout of Beastyqt's base. He's going to have to relocate his own spearmen to defend this position, but finally gets a bit of a taste of his own medicine. However, he's got to be careful. Not just spearmen here, but DeMusliM has support in the horse archers that can chase down those Royal Knights and take them all down. Only one is alive, but not for long. That's a good cleanup with a veteran Khan and a couple of Lancers moving up from Beastie's side to scout ahead and see what's happening on the other side and counterattack.
Indeed, there are quite a lot of Lancers moving in, but with horse archers and knights here for Erik, Beastie has to be careful not to lose those. As you see, there is a difference in approaches between the 2 Mongol players. So far, it's only archers for Kelazhur, whereas it's Lancers for Beastie. In the long run, of course, those Lancers will be a lot more valuable. Down south, you have a 2nd town center coming in for Recon, whereas Erik is just going to play on 1 town center for the time being. He's still a little set back about that aggression, but slowly but surely, you have the numbers increasing for Kelazhur, and one thing that those foot archers will do well is fight horse archers.
Yeah. Especially if you're able to get some upgrades done quickly. You've seen how Imp elite horse archers, how well they can tear through their opponents. We're not going to see that just yet, but potentially something in the future. An outpost being built up here by the green side of Kelazhur in the meantime, as kind of both sides split around, trying to find a better angle of engagement for future fights. Big fight though, with the RecoN pushing into the builds. The Eco of State is taking lots of damage here. Yes, they're fighting underneath their own tower, but how long can they be pushed back? Yes, at least for now. Knight's taking a bit of damage here, and was it 3 or 4 villagers going down? Not too bad, and pushing your opponent's attention away. Fortified palisade walls. That's the reaction that we see from States.
That's a nice reaction over there. He kind of needs that because he didn't kill a single one of those knights, and those would just heal back up with chivalry. You also see towers coming all across the map from Kelazhur, and that's going to give him quite a lot of vision across the map. But on the right side, you have a fairly sizable force of lancers assembling, and with the Muslim also converging on that gold mine from Erik, suddenly our purple player could find himself in trouble.
I have crashed out of the actual observation, so I'll hope to join. Ah, there you go. Thank you very much, Lita. Always saving the day. Lita, lead the way.
As things stand, we have no less than 6 relics coming in here for the Muslim. On the other side, you only see 1, and the second one just now being brought in by State, so the Muslim won those relic wars quite a bit. And if you look at the right side, that mass of lancers starts to become very scary. And the biggest problem right now for Kelazhur is that his archers will have minimal impact on a battle that features heavy cavalry from 2 players, Castle Age heavy cavalry to be precise. RecoN already is in Castle, whereas Erik isn't. And of course, heavy cavalry from Beasty as well. So I feel like we could see one big battle here in which this Mongol player with the green army is not going to be that big of a factor.
Now look at that big mass starting to be built up. And at some point you can just, split them around and do whatever you want. A bit of raiding here coming down for Erik, just with 1 Royal Knight that he can kind of spare in the situation. But I'm wondering, Lita, when a big fight will be forced in this case, and what sort of map geometry we'll have to think about for that.
I think if you are the Muslims team, you know that you have the relic advantage, so you don't really want to force anything that's not there for you. You see, there's a fight over here where their armies seem to be a lot stronger, and this is exactly the type of fight they're looking for. The horse archers from State are just not there, although Beasty's knights are also not in the party, so this might be the retreat at the end.
Here's the horse archers from State coming in from the north. A bit of damage was done with just that small bit of army splitting off away where it could just be completely forced back. And just keep on firing. This is where, like you said, maybe having Mangudais, it could have been chasing the whole time, running back to their own base and doing damage as they go. But turn around here. There's all the horse archers firing into one another. The melee has started, and it looks like an advantage for RecoN in this case. Also a flank coming out from Beastyqt. He might have found the right angle to delay his opponents, but there's Spearmen in the mix here. They're doing work. The horse archers trying to chase against one another, but no, they separate. These will all be forfeit in this case, and a huge chunk of the army is going down. Yes, the horse archers from State are alive, but lacking commitment in the case for that fight. That was the problem. The fight was forced and was won handily by Beasty and the Strealboras.
Exactly, and they also lacked firepower. The Mongol player having spearmen and archers don't really work that well against the unit composition of the opponent. Their army was just a lot more population efficient, and you could see those archers inflicting minimal casualties on the opponents. The other factor was that Erik was still in Feudal Age when that fight happened, so he didn't have his Castle Age Knights upgrade. And speaking of Knights, now his Food Eco is getting pushed by a couple of Lancers coming in from Beasty, and it looks like RecoN is also converging on the right side.
He's trying to push those knights back. We're actually going to turn into him and try to fire in. A few of those horse archers will go down. They just don't have those like imp upgrades that allow them to tank a lot more damage. But yeah, there you go. There's the massive horse archers from DeMusliM coming in. He's been quiet a lot of the game, but quiet because he's been building up that mass for so long. And look at the amount of damage that it's been able to do over the course of the past 5 minutes. Just 2 fights now being forced under the TC, but it doesn't matter. You got knights to tank all that damage. Horse Archer v Horse Archer, but the mass is definitely there for the Muslim, and looks like the game, at least map 1, is done. Beasty and the Strealboras will take map 1.
And they do that in a fairly convincing fashion. Ultimately, this came down to that one big fight in the middle where one of the Mongol players just had a very, very unimpactful army. So you see that drop in the military count just happening there. Archers and spearmen are nice in feudal age, but once you get to castle age, you kind of feel like the Mongols need to add a power unit on the battlefield, which is usually the lancers, and you just have that combination of horse archers and 2 players with heavy cavalry. Of course, the other factor was that Erik was set back quite heavily, but ultimately, the Muslim was able to secure 6 relics as opposed to 2 from his opponent. You had a faster castle age for RecoN with the French, and of course, a more impactful army for Beasty with the castle age Mongols. So all of those sort of add on top of each other, result in a victory for the Muslims team.
What a way to end this first map. That was quite fast, not gonna lie. I didn't expect it to be so quick, but I'm wondering what were the kind of flexion points through the series here. Was it that Beastyqt was able to tie up so many units from his opponents for so long, or tie up also so many players and their attention for so long in his opponent's base? I don't know, but it seems like not being able to push or really challenge your opponents for that long allowed the Muslim to create a large army himself. And we know when Rus get out of hand, Lita, they just obliterate. And we didn't even get to Imp in this case.
Exactly. What I'm unsure about is what exactly Kelazhur's plan was with the Mongols being in the pocket. Because if he wanted to go for something other than Spearman, that plan definitely got disrupted by the fact that he was in the need to help his teammate out on the right side. So maybe the reason why we saw Spearmen and Archers was simply because they had to react to that forward from Beasty, and from that point on, just sort of snowballed out of control, where he had to continue making Spearmen and Archers, but those units were just not as impactful as some other units could have been.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Well, what a way to start things off. Lita, what are you expecting for map 2?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're asking the tough questions today.
looking at the history of Erik+State and Kelazhur, I'm just gonna base my ideas on that. Looking at that, we have them not dropping a single game so far, so it's a little difficult to predict what exactly they could go for. I can see something like Danube River being a thing for them, but I will think about something slower because as things stand, and as it could have been expected to a certain extent, the team with the slightly better lineup of individual players is able to win open maps. This is something that you commonly see. So I would expect them to go for a little slower of a map, something like Danube River, something like Hillandale, for example, simply because in late game, I think the 2 teams are very even. In early game, I think there is a slight edge to Beasty's team, so you don't really want to bring them to an open map.
So big questions around our picks in the next one. What can you learn though from this first map if you're Ethan fans, Lita? Because at some point it looked like they were being picked apart and forced into fights that they might not have wanted to get into, really. Maybe, trying to give themselves a few extra minutes to really build up would have been a better decision.
I think the most important thing that you have to learn is that you need to potentially find or do a better job at finding out what your opponents are up to. Because to me, it really felt like that despite the fact that the Mongol tower rush with Spearman is definitely an option here, it really felt like they got caught off guard by that one. That first gold mine fell really easily, and then Erik just felt a little too confident, maybe, with that second gold mine. Got that tower rushed, was in the need of help from Kelazhur. So it really feel like they either underestimated the power of that aggression from Beasty, or they just didn't think it was gonna happen. So I think that's the most important thing. You have to be a little more active scouting your opponent and seeing what they're up to. Otherwise, you could be suffering from such nasty surprises. All right, looking at maps, it is going to be Danube River, so they're going for a
Okay.
slower map. And in terms of civilizations, we do have Holy Roman Empire for both sides. We do have Chinese for Recon's team as opposed to the English of Erik's team, and Delhi for both. So Delhi HRE are locks, but we have Chinese for Beastyqt and the Strealboras. English on the other side. It can be a good aggressive civilization, but this map, we're seeing it more and more, just goes quite late game. So Chinese seems like a little bit of a safer option here, maybe.
Hmm. I mean, it makes sense. You can't, for those that might not know, you can't pick the same civs that you had in map or the previous map for the upcoming one. So Mongols, Rus, French, they're out of it for both of these teams. French would have been great on here because you have a water control, but we also know the amount of damage that you can do by building up your own walls around the river, something that we might have seen in the past that can do a lot of work with that. So saying Delhi, not surprising at all. And Chinese, of course, in that late game, busting down all those walls, that long range artillery. We haven't really seen much in the way of open field fighting on Danube River. Do you think we'll have more of that here with Chinese into play?
I think that it depends on how long this game is, because so far we've been seeing most of the fighting coming down at the river first and then the island. I think we're only seeing a lot of open fighting if we get deep into this game, like 35, 40 minutes, because
Hmm.
then players will have to start fighting for the resources on the left side. As long as the resources in their starting bases are there, they're not really motivated to move out to the far left. So we're going to see less and less fights. But as the resources go depleted, they will start moving in that direction, especially if they need to start trading. So if the gold starts running very low, they need to start trading and they need the corner for that. So that's where I can imagine some more intense land fighting going on.
So, what's the next step, my friend? Still waiting until our players actually load up for their game so we can get into ops mode.
Indeed, it is going to be in just a matter of seconds, though. They are starting the
Ooh.
game right now. So, this is the first time in this set that we have a deviation in the civilizations. And I really feel like those English have to make it happen early game. You definitely have your options with them, though, because with the longbow support, you could potentially get some towers up. And once the Delhi player gets to Castle Age, he can make some stone wall towers. So, there's a lot to love about the English over here. It comes down to how much damage you can cause in that mid-late feudal age time frame with those English.
Hmm. I'm still I'm still at odds with like seeing how English actually pan out in these 3v3s. I think that combination of like, okay, who is on the other side? How do you want to deal with them? Is playing a lot into the conversation here. Just waiting until my observe button actually goes up and is ready to go. This is definitely going to be another challenge. How do I recover from losing to the quote unquote more experienced team in this case, and Beastie and the Strealboras, and now with water as an extra variable in all of this?
I feel like you just have to reset yourself mentally here, because open maps, oftentimes you see that game number one, a very open map, Arabia, is won by a stronger team, or even in a 1v1 tournament, a stronger player. And then you go for the more specialized maps, and if you can come up with some clever strategies out there, then suddenly you're going to have very, very good chances. So I feel like they just need to make sure they're not stressing at this, and they need to make sure that whatever they do is in accordance with their plans. And that's probably the most important thing here. So, if some things go in a way that they didn't plan to, like I think in game number one, they had a different plan. For the
Hmm.
Mongols player, they had to adjust in a very, very heavy way. I think they just have to commit to their plan, which should be quite a lot of early aggression, I believe, from the English player.
Is Kelazhur the right player for that position?
I think so, yes. Kelazhur has been playing quite decently with the archers in the previous game. His micro was on point, so makes some sense for him to be the English player out here. State is going to be having the Delhi, and Erik is going to have the Holy Roman Empire. Whereas on the other side, RecoN is going to have the Delhi in his hands. The Muslim is going to have the HRE, and Beast is going to have the Chinese. One thing I'm noticing is that Beast is going to have a massive change in his play style when it comes to the civilization selection. In game number 1, he has a super aggressive civilization, the Mongols, does a lot of pressure, and then sort of just plays that support role in late game. Meanwhile, on this map, he's gonna be the one that probably does the least amount of damage early on to the enemies, and then just focus very heavily on the eco. So massive change up in his not his strategy, but his play style has to change very heavily compared to the first game because of the civilization selection.
That is actually quite a good point. It also would show us how flexible Beasty is as a player, which we all know he really is. I mean, we've seen him in 1v1s and how he performs in that way, but we've also seen him in team games and how flexible he is as a player, how you can put him in pretty much any situation, any civ. He can always find a way. And RecoN and DeMusliM definitely play into it. We saw it in map 1 where they kind of give him the space to do what he wants. And somehow Beasty's micro is always so on point that in map 1, he was able to pull the attention of all 3 of his opponents towards him, who is in the course of outpost rushing his opponent, or at least trying to box him in with outposts. That is impressive to see, even more in a team game environment. So I'm really wondering if Beasty can keep this up, or will he be pushed in at some point, maybe recognizing that Chinese won't really be showing up in the game until later on in this map. So I am very curious.
Yeah, that is definitely a factor to consider. So if you're gonna go super aggressive here, then you definitely have your window simply because the Chinese player won't be doing that much in terms of army, or even if he does, that's going to delay his boom. So there is that trade-off. So ideally, the Chinese player doesn't want to fight at all and just build up his economy. And of course, we're going to have fast Imperials from the Holy Roman Empire. And if you have fast imps over there, that will allow you to have some demolition ships to sink the opponent's fishing eco. Of course, fighting for the relics will be a thing to a certain extent, but on this map, the HRA players usually have a rather easy time grabbing some relics for themselves because there's just a minimal amount of land units in most cases. So I think the HRA players are pretty much guaranteed 3 relics apiece, and it's going to come down to water control. And that's your first biggest decision point. How many players are going to fish? How much you commit to water, and how are you going to put up pressure on the opponent's fishing eco?
Yeah, and at some point you don't want to dedicate too much to it because at some point those fire ships are going to come out. We see it all the time in this very thin water space that you have. It doesn't allow you much space to maneuver, really, especially when you go for bigger hulks and such. So you got to be quite careful on how much you're putting into that water eco, but also to not get swamped on the flank. Something that Fitzburg is actually putting up in the chat, something that could have come about in our last game, is gold for the far right player. So the one really at the top that always is forced to migrate towards that hill just off of the map design, where either they're forced in the middle where they have to fight their opponents on our little island, or really to go to the side and try to expand, snake their way to that end. Sometimes you'll see walls coming out also. Wonder Victory, not as high up on the list in this case, but you do have a lot of things to worry about on a map like this, and it kind of adds this extra level of complexity with the water, with the map design, that walling and early docks are going to be our main focus as commentators in those first few minutes of the game.
And with that being said, we're jumping into game number 2 here. Right now, Beasty and the Strealboras, Beasty, RecoN, and the Muslim up 1 game versus State, Kelazhur, and Erik. As we are jumping into the home map of Kelazhur's team, it is Danube River. We will have on the right side Recon's team coming up with Beasty as the Chinese in blue. It is going to be red for Recon with the Delhi and yellow for the Muslim playing in the Holy Roman Empire. The other side, you're going to have Kelazhur playing as the purple English. To the left of him is going to be Erik in teal. And to the right, it is going to be State playing as the Delhi. So the only civilization difference between the two teams is that you have a Chinese on Beasty's team and you have an English player in Kelazhur's team.
So, how does this one go here? We got docks to worry about and villagers that are getting up and close and ready with walls that are supposed to be built up quite soon. The scouts are going all over. There we go. First dock is going to be coming down here for our Delhi player up to the north estate. It's going to be the quickest one to it, as currently Recon is building up his palisade to close up the one walkway through in his side of the map. And Beastyqt is going up for his own dock here, playing as Chinese.
Beautiful moves from Recon, starting all the foundations to make sure the scouts can't run past and hit that villager, and he's delaying his own dock in order to make those walls happen. But one thing that these walls do is prevent those scouts from crossing here in the middle and killing the villagers that are building the docks. Speaking of which, we have a dock coming up on the right side by the Muslim, and we already have a dock from Beasty. On the other side, you have a dock coming up for Erik, you have one already for State, and he's also walling up. And Kelazhur, he's not going for a dock. That's something that you see commonly for the English, but this will also mean that his economy is going to be much weaker compared to everybody else. So that's something that we have to keep monitoring, and he needs to start doing damage to compensate for that eco deficit.
Yep, that's the sort of early game dynamic that you always look at for this map is, okay, how much can I actually put in on building up defenses and such without sacrificing too much in my eco, especially when you're just now building up that dock. When docks are active for pretty much everybody else, somebody has to sacrifice it at that point, and in this case will always be that middle player. State is the one to do so here with his own palisades. He's actually opting to build up the palisades completely, so that's giving a bit of an advantage for Recon here, able to get pretty close to getting out his first fishing ship before coming back, because hey, you don't need those palisades to be completely built up for them to actually block movement through them. So as long as a bit of them are built or a few here and there, then you can go in and save yourself some time before coming back to the walls and finishing them up.
As things stand, we have Kelazhur not going up to Feudal Age yet. He should be clicking up in the next couple of moments. And here it goes. Council Hall coming in. So there is going to be a couple of longbows moving out. Of course, for that, State has to make a gate on this wall, and even then, you already have walls for Recon, so what you're aiming for with those longbows is harassing those fishing ships from the other side of the river, maybe even support them with a couple of forward towers.
Maybe so. Maybe one of your teammates could be the person to actually support you with that, or would you be spending a lot of your resources on the crawl yourself, What do you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like if you are Kelazhur, you have to be the one playing the role of the aggressor primarily. Everyone else has to build up their economy, because if your aggression doesn't work out, your entire team will be so much behind in terms of economy. So I think it has to be Kelazhur playing the same role that Beast did in the previous game, just having one player delay 2 free opponents and just let the teammates snowball the game thereafter.
Very good point indeed. So all that preparation as the council hall is almost done. Kelazhur starting to bank up some resources so he can get a few of his longbows out ASAP if he is looking to harass, which would make sense in the early game here for him as the English. There it is, complete and ready. A bit of a fight here between a scout and a villager. Deville will fall back. This is kind of the one trying to build up those central palisade walls that we've seen in the past. And there we go. Longbows are starting to be pumped out by Kelazhur. The Chinese villager on the blue side is walking back home. Will they survive is the big question, Lita.
The walls are up, so for Beasty, that's probably the primary priority. I think that this villager is likely not gonna make it back home, but at this
Oh,
point, you're more than happy to trade one villager off for that wall, although with the scout coming in for Beasty, things could turn out to be completely different, and as things stand, he might actually keep that villager alive. That's gonna be rather close.
oh my. That's half damage done to the scout so quickly, and this is a big turnaround here. Keeping the villager alive and getting stage scout down lower than half HP, that is huge. Even if he's going to start healing up, not a problem at all. Won't be able to do much damage after this point.
Barbican of the Sun coming in here, and that's going to help protect those fishing ships, although one thing that you have to be careful about is that the Barbican of the Sun is going to fire at one target, so if there are multiple combat ships passing by, it's rather easy to just run past that building and still hit that fishing eco. Now, Kelazhur's longbows are slowly crawling up, and you see they are going to hit the fishing eco of Beasty here in the next couple of moments, but still, behind this one, Beasty is untouched, he's mining stone, so there is going to be a second town center coming up soon.
And for those that are watching, might be wondering, hey, why is nobody playing French? Well, in case you missed it, Map 1 had a French being played by both of these teams. It was a mirror matchup. So that's why you're not seeing French in this case where, hey, water map equals French or Rus. Both of them were played before. That's why you don't get to see them in here. There's the longbows that you're talking about. They're able to do a bit of poke damage here against those fishing boats. The least that they can do is at least push the fishing boats back, but the healing that comes in from the dock is always excellent, provides you with so much support here, and just you need enough longbows to actually start doing permanent damage. So they just got to it here with 5, and the first junk is gonna come out.
And now with that junk, you can scare away all those longbowmen. So I don't think that those longbows are doing enough work here to justify all their costs. They will be able to pick off that scout, so that's definitely value there. But you see, Beasty's already walling himself up. Their fishing eco is safe, and the most important thing is that all 3 of them have fishing ships, as opposed to their opponents, where only 2 players have some sort of fishing eco. So right now, Kelazhur's economy is very, very weak behind this one, and he's going to be staying on one town center for a while, so that eco is going to be by far the weakest in the game.
I mean, he is here though as the English to do that early game damage, so maybe something that he can be happy with in this case. But yeah, like you say, he's not going to be able to do too much. We've seen the English players in the past on this map kind of trail off until they can recover in the mid to late Castle Age. I like the position of the Barbican of the Sun by Beastyqt close to the dock. Will help him out in the future fights. But yeah, those longbows are trying to do as much damage as they can. Unable to destroy a fishing ship, but at least they're able to pull the boat back and waste a bit of time.
Exactly. That's going to be some idle time on the fishing eco of Recon, and that's the type of damage that you're looking for. With your longbowmen, you also have a tower up here for Kelazhur, so it's going to increase their rate of attack. Now you got that one junk passing by. Recon is getting back to his own fishing ships right now, as Beast is coming in for some forward stone walls over here, so he's really scared about those pushes on the land. So far, there isn't really much coming from that direction, but of course, having that many longbows out there makes you feel insecure.
And now that the Song Dynasty has kicked in for Beasty, he's going to be able to build up his really boom so fast. Look at those longbows doing so much work, though, against the fishing boats. 2 will go down in the meantime, as the junk is not really able to get the right range to deal with them. Finally in it, but it takes so much damage from this huge amount. A dozen longbows on the other side. You need to stick close to that dock, and even then, another fishing boat will go down. Good play here from Kelazhur, who might not be in his opponent's base, as some people would imagine when they see, Englishmen in 1v1s or 2v2s. But here in this 3v3, with water to handle, they're doing a lot of work and might be able to snipe out that junk.
Exactly, and that is a quite significant factor to be had right now. Looks like Erik is pulling up the first prelate over here. On this side, Kelazhur is still pushing the fishing ships over here, and he is doing a beautiful job with those longbows having 7 tiles range, as opposed to just 5 of those junks. So the junks aren't able to reach those longbowmen, and now With good enough numbers here for Kelazhur, he's starting to do massive damage to the fishing eco of the opponents. The Muslim is up to Castle Age, as you see a couple of knights coming in to try and pick off those longbows, but you will need a lot more than that to deal with what is currently 12 longbows.
So keep on chasing and pulling your opponents back, doing damage, ship damage more and more into that fishing eco. You're seeing there's a bit of damage being done. It's actually just a little tiny scout doing some work against the blacksmith. I'm not sure why he has a personal vendetta against this very specific blacksmith on the other side of the map, but fair enough. Everybody has a bad day where they wake up to. A bit of a fight here happening with the scout going down right at those red palisade gate. Things are starting to normalize and slow down with walls having been built up everywhere here by Beastyqt+. It might be the march on that middle island in the next 5 or so minutes.
You have a tower now up here for Kelazhur, so he's amping up the pressure. And it started out a little slow, but now you got some towers out here, and towers do a ton of damage against ships, so it is going to be even more effective than the longbows are, and soon Beast's fishing eco could get pushed pretty hard. And the reason why this is a little scary for them is not because they still need that fishing eco. Beasty already has a good land eco as well, so he could technically give up on it if needed. The biggest problem here is that the moment you lose this side of the river, you could see the opponent's Holy Roman Empire player crawling up with a dock and getting some demolition ships in. So this is exactly how you could lose control over the river. And with Kelazhur reaching Castle Age, he's going to have veteran longbows in here as well. Spring golden placements on the towers too. And it looks like State is going for something even more aggressive. He's walling off the left side with some stone walls. He's going to go for the sacred sites there. And he's already grabbing the sacred sites in the middle. So they want to start that sacred site countdown as soon as possible.
Definitely so, which puts even more pressure on Beasty to finish up his side of the wall and just push from the other side of this river. The amount of longbows, though, is doing work here with the outposts in support, and the knights, they don't fare too well against all of this. With so many of these longbows, though, they are put in position for a bit with those stakes. The junks can't really find the right angles. War junk will come in, and that's going to give you a longer way, or I say longer angle to deal with your opponents. Most of the longbows, all of them actually cleared out in this case. Outpost will go down, and this is exactly what you're looking for. The attacks come in, but sacred sites are both in control of State and his team. They're gonna have to be burned down at some point just after those outposts are taken out, probably.
The war junk goes down to the tower fire, so does the junk over here, so there's a lot of value for those towers. Two otherwise very expensive combat ships went down to those. Old limited tower is gonna get cleaned up, and with it the longbows inside will also get killed, although the knights retreat for a brief moment. But you do have Imperial Age already in for Erik, so that's something that we also need to keep monitoring. He aged up with the Palace of Swabia, of course. He's mining a ton of stone, which is a little weird for a Holy Roman Empire player, but not unprecedented. Meanwhile, we see some men-at-arms coming in, as now the Sacred Site countdown begins. Men-at-arms hitting the field right now for State. Sacred Site countdown started like 13:15, so now 10 minutes are given to Beast's team to neutralize one of those.
The clock tower is in, and there's some nest of bees that are being brought up. Palace guard as well. The army is being built up here by Beastyqt+. An explosive junk is out, but there's an outpost firing at it in the meantime, mostly being used to scout about. It's still alive in this case. Not too bad. There's a bit of infantry, some men-at-arms being brought up by State, as this middle section might just be forfeit, but there's nobody pushing the sacred site to retake it and still control State, so not too sure what's happening here, though. There is a big fight about to happen. Men-at-arms are being chased down by the knights. They should be cleared out as the Tower War Elephant comes up from behind. Not too bad to use your knights for that advantage. You got numbers, you got better equipment.
Exactly, those knights were used really well by the Muslim. I loved how he was constantly just pursuing those men-at-arms. He wasn't just right-clicking them. He moved in front of them and then tried to get a good surround. Now you got a War Elephant in the party. Although, those War Elephants, as long as they don't get the crossbows upgrade, which is an Imperial Age upgrade, they don't perform that well against that many knights. As you see now, the Muslim is pulling the knights to try and secure the sacred site. Notably, the Muslim is just now reaching Imperial with the Holy Roman Empire, so he has delayed that a tiny bit. But in exchange, he has a fairly sizable force of knights now, so he's got some beef in the middle to fight this one. Spearmen are coming out for Kelazhur, though. with the English. As things stand, as you said before, we had Nest of Bees and Palace Guards for Beastie, so that is obviously going to delay the Fire Lancer play from him quite a bit.
But those are not here in position to help in the middle. So there are a few spearmen. There's a few lancers coming around on the flank. So what's going to happen here is Muslim's going to try to pull back, at least get himself to a better position where he can actually utilize his teammates' support also. Sacred Site was close to being neutralized, but was not. So it's going to keep everything up and ready. The Knights are going to charge in with Lancers cutting off support in the back. Tower Elephants might be a bit tough to deal with here, but with the Spearmen going down, the rest should be slaughtered fairly quickly. Men-at-Arms do not fare so well against these Knights on the other side. Lancers are still alive too that are swarming the Elephants, and yes, Elephants with almost 1,000 HP, that is a lot to deal with. Elite Knight upgrade though comes in at the perfect time, and this is all gonna get cleaned up with the Sacred Site neutralized. Great play here and great teamwork by State. By RecoN and DeMusliM were able to clear out the Sacred Site and get the advantage swinging to their side.
Beastie is now trying to push up down south here with the Palace Guards, and Nest of Beast, he has to be careful because we could see some demolition ships rolling in from Erik. He has gotten a couple of demos out already, and those are mostly on the left side of the map right now. There is no sneaky dock up front over here. As things stand, Beastie is still on Palace Guards, and we haven't seen a single Fire Lancer hit the field. In the middle, we do have Spearmen reinforcing the battlefield now, and suddenly those Elite Knights run into a wall of spears. They gotta be really careful, because as things stand, Kelazhur is going full Spearman. And given
That's how many lost there?
I think that's like 10 or so Knights being cleaned up.
Oh, man.
So at this point, if you look at the army for Kelazhur, that's full Spearmen, which raises some questions over here, especially given the fact that the Muslim is playing with cavalry, RecoN is playing with lancers, and you would expect fire lancers at some point from your Chinese players. So basically, you're going to have a triple cavalry play, which is a little risky here. So someone is going to have to change up his strategy here, because I feel like the fire lancers is just so big that you can't miss up on them. But that means the Delhi or the Holy Roman Empire player has to change something up.
So, 4, those Nest of Bees. There's
demolition ships.
Well.
Oh, demolition ships coming to the right side. He already sunk one, and there is going to be a second one coming in. I love how RecoN tried to trigger that demo, I believe, with one fishing ship, trying to split them up as much as possible.
Oh, you got him! Come on, baby! Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
It's a nuke. It is an actual nuke. That huge range. I think they need to be buffed and kind of triple their range right now with extra damage. That'd be the next step in AoE.
Exactly. If you want to snipe the opponent's town center with demolition ships, you can do that with a couple of buffs. Now we got the Man-at-Arms out on the field, supported by some Nest of Bees, and that's quite a lot of firepower on the battlefield. In particular, if you look at the team of State, they don't have anything that deals with Nest of Bees really effectively. Sacred Sites once again under their control, but now you see those Palace Guards starting to hit the field. Mangonels and Bombards though as a response, and Erik could just snap down those Nest of Bees with those Bombards.
There's Springold here in support, but there's only one of them, and yeah, they're going to be forced back very quickly. The keep has been cancelled, and oh, they need to charge the Lancers into the Spearmen just to allow the artillery to fall back without being lost. Costly charge, but at least they're going to be able to fall back here in RecoN. Like you say, Sacred Site are back in control of State. Walls are going to come up. The keep is going to be built up, and even more walls around the corner with Bombards in support. The walls are destroyed. Those keeps on the other side for our Delhi player on the opposite end in the red. They're not going to last long here for RecoN. They're going to get smashed so quick by 4 Bombards on the other side. And there's also 4 Mangonels behind it. That is a lot of siege.
And the nice thing here for State's team is that they don't need to push this one, because at this point, they have a constant trickle of demolition ships coming closer and closer to that causeway. And you see, at this point, State is just fortifying the middle, coming in with a couple of stone walls. Those are going to be stone wall towers soon. And there's a Sacred Site countdown going on once again. On the right side, you'll see State coming up with a ton of walls. But there is a big batch of demolition ships coming in from DeMusliM.
Oh no, that did nothing! What are you doing, bro? There's so many of them. There's just still trying to find a better spot, but they're all crashing into the palisades or being sniped out.
Actually, there was quite a lot of casualties over there from State side. Wasn't the perfect out there, as you see those others canceling each other with those steel demos. At this point, it looks like State is holding this central choke point. Now, I think it could come down to one big demolition ship. There is quite a lot coming from the Muslim, and I would expect some more to come from Erik as well. Sacred Side countdown still going on, as on the left side, no one is really contesting that Sacred Side, as we have Beasty now coming in with the Spirit Way. You know what that means, it's Fire Lancer time.
But is it too little too late? Now you have to deal with artillery. Yes, if you had a bit of a mass now, but you have so many spearmen on the other side of Kelazhur. He opened up with his own longbows, and then, like you said, swapped completely over to the spearmen. They can do pretty well against the fact that there is so much cavalry on the other side. Look at those lancers. Look at the beautiful line of elite knights and the fire lancers that'll be coming out in just a moment here. This looks like a scenario army at this point with how beautiful they look, but they're going to need to move up at some point. Massing men-at-arms might be a good solution here if you charge them up forward and try to deal with the spearmen just to break that initial charge, allowing lancers and knights to come around the flanks. But I'm wondering, what can Beastyqt add to this lineup in the next few minutes, because that countdown is still going.
Indeed, that countdown is still going. Right now, the Muslim is just charging in with demos because the green player is building up a bunch of Stonewall towers, and apparently the easiest way to get rid of them are just those nuclear torpedoes, the demos that, by the way, have 420 base damage as a nice little side effect. And on the right side, now we see some bombards setting up from Erik. That is a massive move, because those bombards could kill the docks of the Muslim, and if you don't have docks over here, you won't be able to take down those walls, and that's going to slow down your push quite considerably.
More of them here being destroyed. Look at how many demo ships are being brought up from the north, just all migrating down. I mean, people talk about, you know, the European and the African swallow migrating and how much, you know, what weight of coconut they can carry through, but the great demo ship migration down the river here is definitely a beauty to see.
And you see that the Muslim doesn't even have an insight into that stealth forest up north. He's just randomly triggering demos because he's like, okay, if there's anything in that forest, I'm gonna wipe it out. And the Muslim is now going for full demos. He is just moving all the way up there. He's trying to get rid of those towers along the shoreline with those demolition ships.
Dude, that is insane range. Look at how far deep into the forest they're able to hit. No way. Absolutely no way. So much power in these demo ships. They're going to trade off against one another here. 1-to-1 maybe, perhaps. But those outposts were all wiped out at such a massive distance. That is insane.
Towers are still being built though by State. Countdown still going on. Unfortunately, the spec overlay doesn't tell us the Sacred Site countdown. It just tells you that you have 2 Sacred Sites for State. But we'll get a notification on the right side once we get close. But here comes RecoN, and if he gets a couple of bombards to the left side, he could easily blast his way through those walls. And you see, the Muslim was thinking about the same thing here. He's got some knights here as well. But as things stand, they don't have siege to get through those stone walls, and that is buying precious time for State's team.
Keep is up behind the wall as well. And yeah, those demo ships are going to keep patrolling up and down and being blown up every bit. You can actually, they're able to hit the bombard in the back, which is actually insane. There's the towers both being brought down. Beautiful to see. You'll love to see it. And even more of them deeper into the main crossing here. Big fight also in the main crossing. There's some spearmen versus men-at-arms. They're going to get wiped up pretty quickly. And those docks being smashed up again before they can get built up. And at least one bombard being lost in that demo ship explosion. Another one being blown in, but it's a bit too close to the shore. Not able to pull the damage that deep into the forest.
Now you got some bombards from RecoN though crawling up in the middle, and on the left side, that's the biggest question because we have about 3 minutes on this countdown for the sacred sites, but here comes Beasty and he's about to blast his way through those walls, and if he gets through, there's nothing that prevents that sacred site from being neutralized. In fact, it would basically leave the entire left side of the map wide open for raiding. And I kind of feel like that's a reasonable trade-off here. As you see, RecoN is getting some stone walls on the left side. He's like, okay, I don't want any more demos passing from anybody here, especially not from the left side, because I have my bombars on the right side. Here come the knights on the left, and that should be a sacred side being lost from State.
Definitely is needed in this case. That keep will not last for long, with 2 clock tower bombards firing deep into it, with infantry, with cav that are just firing into it, and the entire flank is completely open. Not just this position, but so here's the sacrifice though coming out from State. He's going to try to build up a quick stone wall and then escape through it with his villagers, maybe trying to slow down his opponent. But honestly, when you're faced up against bombards, you can't really do too much. However, Beasty's actually going to take his 2 bombards and bring them back to his base, as it's only the rest of the cavalry that'll push up. And maybe they'll be able to catch the villagers here before they close up this entire wall. But too little, too late. It has been built up. No, there's still a side.
No, there's an opening.
Move through. Oh, let's go. They go in. The Lancers still survive. They block the construction. And the Vills have been pulled into this position. Even might be attacked here by the Wolf. No, he's going to get killed off. But the Lancers move through. And now your attention has to be turned to that position. This is beautiful to see with these network of correlations and defenses.
Honestly, I feel like now it's a question of who is trapped with who, because one thing that you may notice is that the walls are now complete, and you have a bunch of knights completely surrounded by stone walls. This basically means that now those Lancers are stranded, and if you look at the middle of the map, we have a big push being assembled by the Force of State, so suddenly those Lancers are not so impactful. They will kill a couple of lumberjacks, sure thing, but they will get slaughtered without siege support here, so honestly, this might actually be better for State than those knights retreating.
Lida, this is giving me a reminder to the Battle of Elysia, where the crazy man Caesar, he built 1 wall to besiege his opponents, then he got sieged up, and he built another wall. The crazy man, how does he do it? Same thing is happening here with all these walls and stone walls being built up all around the map. And the amount of bombards that are being brought into play is insane. Springles are in that are going to snipe bombards 1 by 1. Maybe culverins at some point. We'll see. Bombards, the rest of them here for the red side of RecoN, are being set behind the walls. This is going deep into the late game, but this big mass of infantry, this big mass of mangonels, all these elephants, they're looking to crash through with the walls now being completely destroyed for RecoN's red side.
Exactly, and the docks are completely destroyed, which means no more demo ships for the Muslim. If he gets a couple of docks up on the left side and just gets 1 demo hit, it can completely turn things around. State just now reaching Imperial. He's been in Castle Age ever since, and you see, this is what I was referring to. These knights are right now actually population being floated. You might make a case for deleting them and just making army back at home, because right now you need those on the battlefield, as you have the big crossing, Mangonels getting a nice volley out, wiping out all those men-at-arms. You need a demolition ship for the Muslim here to turn this around.
Please, I'm just looking around seeing when it's going to be coming out. There's demo ships from Erik, but they can't really reach that deep in. Then again, we've seen some miracles happen. All these elite spearmen are flooding in. Look at the amount of mangonels that are set behind. Oh, it would be so great to destroy all of them in one go. Keeps are trying to hold on to this position, but the veteran spearmen keep on pushing in and pushing back the amount of knights, the massive knights from the Muslim. His Springles of Beastyqt are being shot down 1 by 1. Bombards are firing into the back, and it looks like this defense is going to be pulled in for just a moment. There's no more heavy artillery in the bombards to keep on firing at the keeps, and keeps will smash these infantry so quickly. There's only still 1 more massive elite spearmen here, quite a few of them actually, but how long can they survive with those mangonels also sitting behind? The amount of bombards that are being pulled up by Beastyqt and those war elephants now pretty much left on their own. The big reason why you're not seeing infantry or knights charging too close to the water is the fear of those demo ships that have been set up by Erik. So smart, but that's a lot here wasted by the attacking side and the green side of State and his team and Ethan fans. Just holding on for a bit longer. The game goes on.
And spearmen were sent in by Kelazhur to clean up all those knights. So finally, RecoN is able to get his population back. Beasty Now trying to crawl up with a tower all the way to the river. I have no idea how he got those sneaky villas out there, but he actually has this side of the river on the left side, so something to keep in mind. This being said, I feel like we're getting closer and closer to a position where one team that could pull a wonder could potentially win the game, and that's exactly what we're seeing. The Great Palace of Flensburg is being constructed by the Muslim, but it's only being built with a handful of villagers. They know exactly that this is a stalemate, and one way to win a stalemate could potentially be a wonder. I wonder if there is going to be a response to that from their opponents.
I see what you did there. You need that response to come out. There's so many stone walls that have been built up all around this position to protect all these power points that they have. Look at the amount of bombards that are firing through, absolutely smashing demo ships in their own way, and the amount of gold that's being collected. This is just scurry up, get as many resources as possible, and prep for the inevitable. That wonder has to come down at some point.
But guess what? Erik is pulling his villagers to make the Great Pass of Flensburg as well. It's gonna be head-to-head. And if I'm not mistaken, the moment you start building your wonder, your opponents get notified. So right now, the Muslim building it with only 6 is a massive issue, because basically their opponents were told, hey, I'm making a wonder, might as well do that for yourself too. But Erik's villagers are all idle. Oh boy.
Oh no. Only around a third of those villagers that he has are actually building it up. That's not a ton, really. It's around 1900, 2000 HP right now. It's only around a 500 HP difference between them and the Palace of Flensburg being built by the Muslim. But somebody has to send something over. This needs to be built up a bit faster, because these two wonders might be built up at pretty much the same time here.
Now it's much faster for Erik though, and the Muslim needed way more villagers to be pulled for this one. Because as I said, the moment you start building it, you are going to show your opponent that you're doing it. And as things stand, it is going to be Erik getting that wonder up a little faster. And with them having the map control as well, suddenly the Muslims team is in trouble, because Erik's wonder is up a lot faster.
That is substantially faster. Genuinely, it's going to take another minute or so to get that Palace of Flensburg built up by the Muslim on the other side.
Look at the left side over here, and chat is saying that it might have been a bait. And while I can't confirm or deny that, it's possible it was a bait. Because if you look at the left side, here comes a massive, gigantic knight push. They were trying to blast their way through these walls, and if those knights get in, it's game over, potentially.
77 knights that cross through. My computer is really feeling this one. Still a demo ship on that spot, and they're gonna pass right next to the keep here, just slaughtering a couple of units. They might be able to rush down and walk through in, as there's already lancers at the vanguard with more infantry. Those palace guards, so much work that can be done, but there's so many spearmen coming up to help.
On the right side, you will have the infantry now crossing over here as well, as the keep is being fired upon by Beasty's cannon. Notably, all the docks were cleaned up by the forces of Beasty's team, and now that is about 9 clock tower bombards shredding all those buildings. And while those knights aren't directly fighting the forces of Kelazhur up until now, they are distracting those spearmen, letting RecoN cross. Many of those knights from the Muslim were slaughtered by the spearmen though, so that was some costly casualties out there.
Majority of them have been taken out to the north, trying to push those bombards that were set up by Erik, but this destroys all of the barracks, and this becomes the slow crawl up to your opponent's base. It's not just about breaking this middle island, but it's about then breaking the layer of walls that gets you into their base and beyond, and you have 13 minutes to do that for Erik, unless you go for the sacred site control yourself, which seems a bit complicated as being pulled up by State and the rest of his team. So many bombards that are left on their own here, a dozen of them, while the rest of the production building that was set up on this side of the river are going to be destroyed. All these keeps are going to go down, with more also being built up just to slow down your opponent. Right now, create a wall. Any person, any building in front of you, that's going to buy you a couple extra seconds, and that is all you need to take the W.
And now the river on the right side is under the control of Beasty's team, so you gotta be very careful when you get close to those bombards, because demolition ships can sink you. On the left side, you still have some docks out here, so both sides have chances to go for some nice demolition ship blasts, but now the military momentum seems to be on the side of the Muslims team. he actually ends up finishing that Wonder, so we will never know if he just wanted to bait his opponent into something, or he just genuinely forgot to build it with more vills, not knowing that their opponent can see that. But now they have the momentum. There is 12 minutes to go until the Wonder victory of Erik's team, but the momentum is great here for RecoN and his friends.
Dude, I cannot believe the amount of bombards that are being brought over here by Beastyqt. He's going to be able to smash through all those keeps in an instant. Lancers being shot down as they're trying to charge into every single Onager, every single Springald, destroy them just to let his own team's bombards just be comfortable in their position. But they need to move up here. Just sending the Lancers solo with some infantry, they're going to die real quick. You need more here in support. That's exactly what we're getting. Outposts being sniped as we speak. But the keeps are not pressured here in the center with so many war elephants coming up. They're going to be able to survive for so long. Cannons, bombards firing at one another. All is smoke and dust. It feels like a Napoleonic battle at this point. Can't see anything that's going on. Elite Knights are charging. Those elephants, they're rushing through as fast as they can into the bombards. And somehow they are surviving, but the Knights, they're being melted. And there's more spearmen coming in from behind. Finally, the lowly spearman with his little pike is going to be able to do so much damage against the Knights, forcing them back. The bombards have already been cleared out, or have had to fall back over the past minute or so. This seems to really have stabilized to the side of Ethan fans, as Beasty and Strealboras, they weren't able to build up that Wonder quickly enough, and they're not able to break this hold with the amount of keeps that are built up just yet.
Another batch of Knights sent in here by the Muslim, but as you said, Beasty's team wasn't making notable progress on the middle, so you gotta wonder if they should try the left side once again. It's wide open if you blast through that single layer of walls, because in the middle you have dozens of elephants, a lot of artillery, cannon, mangonels, so it seems like the easiest way is to just use your mobility. The palace guards are fast, the knights are fast, you could try blasting your way through the left, and then the Delhi player would have a hard time adjusting to that. We have 10 minutes remaining on Erik's Wonder.
Kelazhur's almost his entire pop outside of villagers is all in spearmen. There's almost 100 spearmen that are there. How do you deal with that if you just don't have the amount of massive infantry? You need the right artillery for it, and you just cannot afford to do any of that right now. Everything's being focused on those clockwork bombards that just need to be there to destroy the keeps, to destroy any heavy elephants, keep on firing at them. But so far, only one keep going down, and things are really looking grim for Beastyqt and the squad. Look at the massive army that is slowly pushing up, and those bombards days might just be close to over.
You could see some yellow dots moving to the south, so I think Beasty is switching his army indeed, and there is going to be some demo ships. I think your safest bet is exactly what the Muslim is doing. He's getting some demos behind. He could blast his way through those stone walls, but I think he needs to wait before the Knights arrive. If he blasts his way through the demos, he can run in with the Knights, and he can just potentially even snap that Wonder, because one thing that the State's team doesn't have is mobility. You have spearmen that are slow, elephants, super slow, and the third player, Erik, basically just has cannons, so you blast through those stone walls with the demolition ships, run in with the Knights, and you can cause a lot of chaos.
True, and look at all the demo ships now setting up. It's a great point that you mentioned here. They're going to be scouting up and down the river just to try to find a snipe on the army as it's trying to cross. It's so slow, but demo ships are moving up. Not sure if this is seen yet or not. There's 3 demo ships that are moving up. A couple of them have been lost out in the center. They're so close here, but the spearmen can't really do anything about it, and they're going to fall back. Whew. Okay, that was... Give him 10 more seconds and this whole thing would have been over. The keep is in the perfect position here to snipe up so many of these demos that are going to go and fire off into the stone walls. And one of them is still going to be alive. There it is, blowing up the wall. And look at that section with Knights. Start to flood in. 53 Knights in total are coming through.
And while they're coming through, you will have to react to that one with either Spearmen or the Elephants. You see, it looks like the team of Kelazhur is just focusing the middle, but that's gonna let no less than 53 Knights run straight towards that Palace of Flensburg. But there is a trick. That player has stone walls around it, so now you won't be able to destroy it with just Knights. In fact, the only thing that you can do is kill the Holy Roman Empire player, snipe his landmarks, because then if he gets defeated, the Wonder is also cancelled.
he has to know that there has to be stone walls around this. You never build a wonder without any defenses around it, especially when you only have one layer of stone wall that you can work with at the front of your base. Any armies that are being pulled back, yes, you'll see the spearmen that are being pulled back to deal with the knights, who are actually pushing the eco in this time, actually being kind of trilled away from the main objective that you mentioned, which is, hey, why not try and focus down your entire opponent's landmarks? That would be great in this case. They are not being defended, but I say that, in the meantime, a stone wall has been built up the Regnitz Cathedral here by Erik, just to make sure that that does not get sniped. Look at the play, the 300 IQ that we're seeing here, and that suddenly has been denied. Your knights can't do much except for killing a few units.
Yeah, and at this point, killing eco doesn't help you because the game is gonna be over in 6.5 minutes at latest if you don't snipe that wonder. And even if you kill eco, you see Kelazhur's got tons of resources in the bank, so that's not gonna help you. But now, all the spearmen have been pulled away, and one thing that you have still is demolition ships for the Muslims. So if he pulls those up, he could potentially sink those spearmen as they are crossing, and that could give a lot of momentum for his teammates in the middle. Elephants are now being mixed in by RecoN as well.
Oh no.
Is it 6 minutes enough to fight this?
I'm not sure if it will be. The knights are trying to lay the spearmen that were really the big bane of their whole attack. Keeps are going down and bombards are firing into those elephants in the center and trying to deal with mangonels at the same time. Split off a few of those knights, and that would be great to deal with units over there. Even a lot of vills being deleted in the meantime, either killed or deleted, to allow for more space for military units so you can keep on fighting and fighting and fighting. And you need every single bit of them. You need to start crawling a bit faster than this. It took a whole minute to kind of break through the center, but now spearmen are back and they're going to be able to deal with your elephants quite quickly. A lot of them will be melting away though on state side as keeps will keep on going down to deleted in the center. But what has happened, that big blob of knights, they're not dead yet. They're going to be circling back here to try to clean up this fight in the center. Elite spearmen are coming up also with palace guards in support. More from both sides streaming in.
Oh yeah, good. But there is going to be some grenadiers even mixed in by Beasty against the infantry. The problem is that those knights are just unable to impact the battle. And as you said, this crawl is just way too slow for Beasty's team. It is being reinforced by State, and the biggest challenge is still there, that river crossing. All of the players from Kelazhur's team stonewalled some of their landmarks just to make sure that those knights cannot snipe them and knock them out of the game. 4.5 minutes remaining.
Man, Erik, such a great play here, not only with the wonder, but also in realizing what's going on and walling in his Regnitz Cathedral, and it's looking like the end as my game looks to have frozen. Lita carry through.
Oh boy, it is a lot of things going on at the same time, as RecoN's team is getting closer and closer to that river crossing. Now the knights have been cleaned up, but this actually means that the Muslim can once again reinforce the battlefield. He seems to be running low on gold though, because we are seeing more and more horsemen coming in for him. They're very close to that river crossing, and if they get some demolition ships out there, they could sink State's army. That's their only hope, I believe, because without a good demolition ship in here, I don't think they can cross through in time. 3.5 minutes remaining.
Honestly, even if you had all the time in the world here, it's going to be a very tough one to go through.
But there's the
layer
demos.
after layer.
The demos are coming in.
Spearmen, please, please, get them all! Show me the money, let's go, baby! Fire off, he's so close, he's so close,
boy,
but they're not
he's
enough.
getting it.
They wipe out half of them, not too bad. The walls have also been destroyed, and the rest of the military is being cleaned up. You got 3 minutes and 20 seconds to keep on pushing through, but you need to deal with production, and right now, Kelazhur's production is just spearmen, and he could hold on for ages this way.
3 minutes remaining from that wonder countdown. I feel like with this momentum, there's two things that can happen. Beasty's team destroys the wonder and they win because they are only 1 minute behind, or they are unable to destroy the wonder. There is a demolition ship coming out of that dock for Erik.
Please. Hit it.
Oh,
more of it.
boy.
Only a couple units here. They're going to be able to move in, burning those walls. You need to keep up that momentum. You cannot stop at any point in time. You got less than 3 minutes. You need to keep on moving. Keeps walls being built up. That is going to slow things down. Building up also a concave of defenses.
But no more docks. No more docks out here, so I feel like the hardest part of the job is done for Beasty's team. They are through the river, and there's still 2.5 minutes remaining. I feel like this is the last layer of defense here for State's team. If Beasty's team gets through, and with all those clock tower bombards, hand cannoneers, spearmen, elephants, they might have just enough time to get to that wonder.
It's going to be a very close one here. There's just not enough reinforcements coming in from Erik's team's side here at Ethan fans. Another keep is close to going down, but you don't even need to worry about that. Rusta Springhold's in the back, deal with the wall, and keep on chugging along. Those spearmen being reinforcing in, trying to survive. Bombards keeping them alive with all of the infantry, the spearmen, and the palace guards that are being produced in this case. Walls being blasted through as we hit the 1 minute 40 mark. And they're just crossing in. Lita, they are so close to it. One more layer removed from the wonder itself, and there's only production buildings that stand in their way that are going to keep on rushing, but more walls are being built up, even outpush whatever they can put together. I can't believe it's getting so close.
Oh my goodness, and now you see the juices running out of for Erik's team. Kelazhur is at 59 eco, 45 military population. He's running out of army. They're trying to rush up some more Vos. 1 minute remaining. I think now you gotta go for those Vos and just try to blast through. You don't even need to get the wonder down with the bombards. Just blast through and send in your cavalry. Bombards crawling closer. 1 layer of Vos remaining with 1 minute. There is just no army now for Erik. He's pulling everything. They know exactly that if they destroy those bombards, they might themselves. Just enough time. Everything is being pulled here. It's now or never for Kelazhur's team.
Boys! All the boys! Everybody's coming in, boys and girls and all in between. This is the time for it. Only a few bombards remain. The Cav is trying to rush through here, firing into the wonder, and they're just draining it down. 3,000 HP left on it. 30 seconds left until the end of the timer, and it's down to half HP. Lita, they've actually done it here. They're down to 1.4. Bombards are pretty much destroyed in this case, and they're just rushing through. It's on fire. It's destroyed. It's surrendered, and there's 1:20 left, and I can't believe it. They actually fired back. They took control, and they countered the wonder. Lita, this is the best game I have ever seen. And oh my god, the wonder counter snipe with 20 seconds left. Bellissima. Fantastic. Beautiful. What a way to get this series going.
Absolutely. And ultimately, we might be looking at this game as the set that, or as the game that decided this set ultimately, because Ethan fans were just so close. And as weird as it sounds like, do you remember that time where some of the villagers for the Wonder Builder, Erik, was idle? That's basically the 20 seconds that were lost over there. And ultimately, Beasty's team were losing. They had like 30% map control. You have a wonder coming out for the Muslim, building it very slowly. Erik realizes what's going on, starts to rush up his own wonder, gets the wonder up. Suddenly, some demolition ships blast through the walls. 50 elite knights run in to snipe that wonder. Reaction, you stonewall up your wonder. Knights switch target to the landmarks. Landmarks are stonewalled up, and suddenly you see the Muslims knights being unable to snipe down the landmarks. But then just the direct push coming in from Beastyqt+DeMusliM+RecoN and the Muslim, crossing that river, especially being able to snipe those docks so fast, and that river crossing being done so fast, was probably what won them the game, because just 20 seconds delay and they would have lost it. Absolutely fantastic game here.
I am at awe. I want to thank you for bringing me in today to actually cast my first ever official AoE4 game with anybody, because I get to witness this beautiful match and talk about it. My god.
Oh boy, like, this was one of the closest games I've ever seen. It was just such a spectacular beauty, and it was really close until the final moments, because the villagers were pulled to destroy the bombards. If those bombards go down, there is no way for the cavalry to break through those walls. Ultimately, you're looking at the scoreboard and saying, oh yeah, it's 2-0, Beasty's team is stomping their opponents, but this is just very far from the truth. If we look at that military graph, you just see those big swings out there, and there were so many spectacular moments. If you remember all those red knights being trapped in there between the stone walls, then yellow knights being unable to do anything, but ultimately, it looks like Beasty's team was able to grind down their opponent's economy. Just a quick look at the KDs. Beasty 541 kills, 547 losses, very, very close, but 51 buildings destroyed as opposed to only 10 lost. Quite a spectacular performance. And I gotta give some credit to Erik, who still made that wonder happen, and he's got 425 kills to 258 losses, so his demolition ships worked really well.
I am still at a loss for words, Lita. I'm so sorry. I would love to say something that would add on top of your beautiful explanation and kind of diving deeper into the numbers, but my God, if you're an AoE fan and you were not at the edge of your seat watching this series, the last few minutes of it especially, reconsider. And if you want to get your friends into AoE, at least watching it competitively, because we've all played AoE in our lives, show them the last 5 to 10 minutes of this game. Absolutely. Incredible comeback. You always talk about it, it's like, oh, you know what? They can come in and snipe the Wonder. They could always do it. And the way it all started with, like you explained, around a minute difference between the two Wonders being built, the mechanic and all the things that played in between them. And at the end, even when all the boys and girls were pulled in to destroy the bombards, they were smashed, they were destroyed, but so much damage had been done. So many strategies have been used up and abused, and I mainly mean the demo ships in this case and abuse. That was beautiful to see the end and how that wonder went down. Incredible. I expect this to be on the subreddit. I expect this to be everywhere, because what a way to end a game. And not just any game, but a game with 6 top players in AoE4. That's the beauty you look for.
Exactly. Like, this is one of those games where you'll be talking about this game for a long time, because as you said, we often talk about, oh yeah, they can snipe the Wonder. Oh yeah, they can snipe the landmarks, but you don't see that much, especially with no Fire Lancers for the Chinese. And if you think about it, 3.5 minutes before that countdown ended, we still had the Beastie's army on the other side of the river, yet to cross, where there were multiple demolition ships for Erik. So to me, it seemed impossible that they can get there in time, and really, it was better late than never, because they just delay by 10-15 seconds, and it's game over.
Oh, man. Well, that's a way to get back into it. A hell of a way to make it a 2-0. Unexpected at some point. And to now wrap up our second map and start looking at our next one, which I'm not sure which one it will be just yet, but this has to have a psychological impact on Ethan fans. After
Absolutely.
it got so close, maybe this kind of shakes you off and tilts you going into map 3.
I 100% agree with that. It is just such a heartbreaker, because it's the so close yet so far situation. Like, you're just feeling that, and you're doing everything you can to slow this down. I feel like it's better to get smacked in the face and lose a game in 5 minutes, rather than just losing one that's really close. And now the awkward thing is that we're going back into just standard Dark Age, not a lot of units on the battlefield. There's always that mental aspect for casters as well. We had some insane late game here with fighting going on everywhere, and then suddenly we go back and we see less than 10 units on the battlefield.
I'm thinking about this because I'm trying to mentally recover from the last game, and I'm wondering what's going on in players' heads right now. Or like, you know what, I'm just gonna go get nice cold water and maybe something to splash some water in my face to recover after this. It really has to weigh heavily on you. And I'm wondering now, with Chinese HRE and Delhi being taken away for Beastie and the Strealboras, what are they going to set up for our next map? But also that HRE English and Delhi Sultanate are out of play for Ethan fans in this. Is it going to be, back to Mongols, Rus, French, or how is it going to be like?
I feel like you gotta go back to your roots, go with the good old-fashioned Mongols, Rus, French combination over here, if you're going to an open map. And as I said, this is where things are getting a little problematic for Ethan fans, because if you're going to an open map, we have seen them lose in game number 1. The Muslims team seem to be a little more confident on that department, and now losing this very close game hurts, because Beastie's team is on match point. So despite how close this match was, ultimately, it is still worth exactly 1 point for the winner and 0 for the loser.
So, do you have a decision on the map yet, by the way?
I think so. We do have Highview coming in as
Okay.
next one. Civilizations are being picked right now. So Highview, another open map out here. A map where you have to be very, very careful how you move your army, because that's the biggest question mark right now. You move your army to a wrong position just once, and you get ambushed by a massive amount of horse archers. So you really have to be considerate on how you move your army. You need to make sure you sync up with your teammates, make sure the information that you have is consistent, and that's going to be just vital. Otherwise, you will just get your army intercepted and picked off.
Can you compare it to any other map? Like, could this compare to Dry Arabia, for example, in the way that you would be playing it, or is there any other way to compare it with?
I think it's like Dry Arabia, just a lot more snowbally. That's probably what I would say, because we have more predators, wolves, lying around the map, which means that the Rus players can get more bounty, making the game a little more snowbally. And as I said, the fact that these stealth forests are just all across the map give you a lot of opportunities to ambush opponents. It also increases the importance of mobility, because if there's a map where you really don't want to have English going for you, it's probably this one. Just imagine moving through that forest with your longbows and then suddenly 5 mangonels get a volley out on top of your head. Even with horse archers, it's a little risky to move through that forest. So I would think that this is one of those maps where you want highly mobile civilizations. The only reason why English could be an interesting idea here is because they do benefit a lot from their towers, and towers are a nice way to get an insight into the stealth forest. So Mongols is almost a lock, because the Mongols also benefit from their towers and they want that vision. And English is a bit of a question mark. I think you're sticking with your French, Rus, Mongols trio here.
Yeah. That was the expectation, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a mirror matchup like we saw in map 1 again. Wouldn't be too surprising if that was the case. So,
Yep, you're right. We're going for the good old-fashioned mirrors. Now, this might sound a little repetitive to some people, having free civilizations out here, but we have to remind everybody that you're not allowed to pick the free civilizations that you used in the directly preceding game. So this means that you can only choose from 5 civilizations, and there isn't really a lot of ways in which you can choose 3 out of 5 civilizations, especially given the fact that obviously some of these civilizations are better on open maps than others. So you wouldn't be picking English for the reasons mentioned before. And Abbasids, we have seen some of that being used, but the free alternatives are just better than the Abbasids in this scenario, I think.
alrighty, so our lobby is set up right now. We're waiting until our players actually get their game rolling so we can actually get into our spec delay for them. So, hey, look, we talked about all this. Chat, there's what, over 2,500 of you in here. I want to ask you, what do you think about the last game? What do you think this will have as an impact to Ethan fans going into map 3? Do you think Beastyqt+DeMusliM and RecoN can actually carry it through with their own momentum, or Erik+Kelazhur+State just kind of fight back against him, use Beasty and his squad's kind of overconfidence at this point against them, and undermine them, poke them here and there with 1 or 2 quick matches? I want to ask you, let us know what you think. And you know what? I can't wait until the people that could not be here on the live stream get to see the actual VOD on YouTube, Lita, because I think this game might go down as a classic in early AoE history.
Exactly, that was just such a crazy game. All those intense moments. And of course, while demolition ships indeed feel very, very powerful, and there is a lot of debate that's being sparked by how powerful they are, one thing is sure, they deliver spectacular moments.
They definitely do. They definitely do. And that's kind of the expectation when you have 2 teams made up of some of the top players in AoE4 right now, and some players that have had a lot of success in StarCraft 2 in the past. A lot of those skills translate from one game to the next. And they've taken the past few months since release to prepare to play up. You've seen them on stream, you see them in tournaments, their own personal streams. These are players that are very much dedicated to the craft, and they're quite good at what they do. And now we go back to a more open map. On the first time that we saw an open map was Dry Arabia, it did not look pretty at all for Ethan fans. And Beastyqt was able to pull 3 players' attention away from literally anything else for 7 to 8 minutes, for quite a while. Him playing Mongols and just building up outposts around. Maybe a strategy that we could see again.
Exactly. Like, Ethan fans had a rough game number 1, but this being said, that, like, in that game, everything went badly for them. Their French player got tower rushed pretty hard, and they weren't really able to take that down. Their Mongols player had to play with spearmen and archers for a long time. We never know if that was the original plan or not. Their Rus player was only able to grab 2 relics as opposed to 6 from the opponent. So, that was one of those games where just everything went wrong for them. This being said, of course, they need to clean some things up, but they obviously can learn a tiny bit from that game as well. They are getting ready for game number 3. Match point for Beasty and the Strealboras. If they win this, they move into the semifinals.
And honestly, a 3-0 might be a possibility. I don't want to be, a dampener here on the situation, but I would love to see Ethan fans coming back from this and showing us their mental prowess, because this is not an easy situation to come back from. So we don't usually get to talk about, mentality and recovery and all of that in AoE. You get to see it sometimes in, very long tournaments. You get to see it in some of the lands that, fortunately, we haven't really had much of over the past year and a bit. So also something to keep in mind for this game. How do they recover? Can Erik+Kelazhur+State actually get back into this matchup and fight back against Beasty and Strealboras, because they're looking quite tough. And honestly, Lita, I say this from the point of view of map 2, for all intents and purposes, should have been an Ethan fans victory in like every single way. Count out the wonder.
Exactly.
They had Beasty and his team against the wall.
You are right about that. They were in a leading position, but we talked about the fact that they had lack of mobility, so the moment those knights broke in, suddenly they had to fall back. And it took some time for the spearmen to get back home, clean up the knights, and by the time that they managed to clean that up, the production buildings on the front line were destroyed, so it was much more difficult for them to reinforce their army. So as long as both armies were facing each other in the middle, it was a stalemate. But the moment one team was able to break that stalemate with some mobility advantage, suddenly you started losing production buildings and ground in the middle for the team of Kelazhur, and then replenishing that armies was going to be much more difficult.
So, what are you expecting in early game here, Lita, with Mongols, Rus, and French back at it again? The classics so far in AoE4 on a classic open map. How do you see this going?
I think it's going to fall into the hands of Beasty's team. They can play with confidence now. This is the biggest thing. They can go for a little riskier approaches, go for a little more aggressive gameplay, because they're up 2 games. They just won a very close game over here, so as much as their opponents have to, and that's a pretty important factor here. So Kelazhur's team really needs to make sure they don't make any critical mistakes here, because then they are out. Whereas their opponents, even if they lose this game, there is a lot of chances for them to close this series out. So I think the biggest thing for Beast's team mentally is that they have that safety net of being up 2 games.
It is a huge safety net in this case. Not only do you have the mentality on your side, but you also have 2 maps where, hey, you know what? Maybe we lose one map that didn't really go too well for us. That's okay. We can put it back together for the next one. And even if we lose it, we still take it to map 5 and we can do some work at that point. So Hey, a lot of potential here. That's why we're talking about, advantages, win conditions. But what can Ethan fans then learn from the last games and actually apply in this one, Alito?
I think the biggest thing is that they need to be committed to whatever they wanted to do with their Mongols in the pocket in game number 1. Because to me, it really felt weird that you could see just spearmen and archers, even in Castlage from the Mongols player. There needs to be something more. Either a lot of siege to accompany that, or some crossbowmen mixed in, or preferably knights, maybe Mangadai, but something other than archers, because mass foot archers work decently against horse archers, but the moment your teammates don't have the army to back it up, they'll be completely useless because the knights will just slaughter them. So unless you have a ton of advantage when it comes to knight numbers, I don't think that you want to go mass foot archers with the Mongols. You probably want to go in the direction of lancers, Mangadai or so. Curious to see if we're going to see Mangadais from Kelazhur, because I still believe that in game number 1 that had to be the plan. He just had to adjust, because otherwise you wouldn't be picking the pocket position for your Mongols.
Mm-hmm. So we're about a minute or so away from heading into map 3. So let's hear it again, chat. How do you see this going? Is it going to be 3-0, or will Ethan fans fight back? I know there's some that always root for the underdogs, and I think it's quite clear at this point who they are, but that second map, honestly, could have gone either way with 20 seconds difference. Impressive what Beasty and the squad were able to do, but now that's in the past. That happened in our last map. Now you need to reset. Don't get cocky if you're Beasty and the squad, and don't let go if you're Ethan fans and the squad, because you got a lot more work to do and you need to focus on the next one. That is a prowess that you need to develop as a competitive player. You have to let go of what happened before and just focus back on the next one. How do we shut down Beastyqt is going to be the next question, because he didn't really get into his own as the Chinese in the last game until later in the map. He can do a lot of work, as we've seen him in the past in an open map. He's going to be able to occupy you and the rest of your team for quite a while. So maybe targeting Beastyqt early on with 2v1, even if needed, might be worthwhile. Again, mirror matchup. We got Mongols, Rus, and French for the two squads. Beasty and the Strealboras and Ethan fans. Lidakor, we're about to get in. Final thoughts?
Well, it's now or never for Ethan fans as we jump into game number 3 over here. As I said, they're on the back foot, down 2 games, but we have seen reverse sweeps in the history of Age of Empires. So with that being said, on the left side we'll have Ethan fans with Erik playing as the TL French on the north. Down south you will have State playing as the Rus in the flank in purple. And once again, in the pocket is going to be Kelazhur playing as the Green Mongols. On the right side, you're going to have RecoN playing as the French pocket. Up north is going to be the Muslim as the Rus in yellow. And down south, you're going to have the Mongols player for Beasty in red. So once again, you have that Beasty versus one non-Mongol player matchup on the flanks. But this time it's slightly different, because instead of having it against a French player, you have it against a Rus player. And while you can most definitely tower rush Rus players, it's a lot more difficult to pull off than it is to tower rush a French player.
I mean, tower rushing a French player really sounds like the perfect thing for you to try and do in this case, to slow them down, not allowing them to grow too quickly. And at least in this case, everybody was spawning in the proper positions for themselves. State, Kelazhur, and Erik in this position here to the left-hand side. So I'm very curious how this will go, and maybe Beastyqt would be pressured early on just because of his position being a bit more exposed. Maybe.
Indeed, that is a big question over here, because Beastyqt is quite far away from his teammates, although State is also quite far from the other 2 teammates, as we do have some wolves being triggered by the Muslim. As we discussed before, on this map you have a lot more wolves than you have on Arabia, so the Rus players should both have a rather easy time gathering bounty. State is only at 90 though, so not a spectacular start for him, whereas for the Muslim is at 60, so both Rus players have a type of pedestrian start here at this point.
Yeah, just kind of taking their time, building up that bounty as best as they can. And what else is going on? Seems like a pretty calm time to start out with. Bit of gold being collected, all the sheep being brought over back home. French collecting that gold. Of course, they needed to get that night production out quickly. So yeah, pretty cozy. What is the next step though? So far in this early game, do you see any directions already being shown in kind of buildings or positions, Lita?
I think the first major difference that we are spotting is that Beasty is not going for any kind of Dark Age aggression. And that, I think, is something that's very helpful for Kelazhur's team, because one of the main reasons why they fell in the first game is because of Beasty's aggression. So Beast is going to play a lot more passively over here. And you see, if there is no aggression from him, there is no barracks whatsoever from Kelazhur either. So that's going to let Kelazhur play the game plan that he initially imagined. So I feel like Kelazhur's team has to be happy with the fact that Beasty is not putting up any aggression as of yet.
So maybe we'll be seeing some aggression in the future from it. Deer stones are being put up here for Beastyqt+, and we also saw that School of Cavalry being built up, so around halfway done for French side of RecoN. Bit of a fight here between our two Rus Scout, as the Khan from the Mongols pushing up to him. Extra bounties being collected. So what a state up to around 300 now in his bounties. I'm just sniping as many of these deer as humanly as possible. Maybe we'll seeing professional huntsmen coming out in the future, just so he can, or professional scouts, just can ferry all that deer back home or to his teammates. Something that we've seen a few times today, actually, to boost up the production of some of your teammates on the food.
You could see that Beasty knew exactly that he can't kill that scout, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna kill your sheep, which, by the way, still tells you that you're a monster in the tooltip for eating that sheep. That's a nice little Easter egg in the game, just like the bitey infantry for the wolves. As you said, 4380 bounty for State here, and for the opposing Rus player, only 265, so the Muslim is off to a little slow start over here, but there is still a lot of hunt across the map to recover from. He's gonna need to gather some more, though, because in a 3v3 matchup, especially on high view, you want to get to 400, 500 with the Rus players. Beerstone's complete now for Kelazhur, and he is very heavy on the gold department. Makes me wonder what he has on his mind. There's a pasture for the time being only, no upgrades coming in. I really feel like this is gonna be Mangadai, but we haven't seen a single production building yet, and RecoN is going to start walling up. So, as much as this map is very open, you also have to keep in mind that we have a lot of smaller forests lying around, so it's a little easier to build walls in between them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of also forest space for you to hide your troops in between. So ambushes are very common to see here at different angles, different positions that you can come from. Something that you will always have to watch out for from early game into the very late game, where an exposed flank really can weigh heavily on you. But so far, no aggression, something that we have not been used to in this series over the past couple of maps that we've had. There's always been Beasty kind of poking and prodding up and around. The two Rus scouts are fighting up against one another here, and the sheep are being herd back home by State. And you were saying the possibility of Mangadai. Now, looking at the amount of gold that's been collected by Kelazhur is around 250 gold that is in the bank. Is this still a possibility?
It is. He's already queuing them up. I really felt like the only reason why you pick the Mongols pocket is to go for Mangadai, and I think if you use it well, that's a very deadly unit, but you gotta be very careful. Losing those Mangadai is game over for you, because they are very, very expensive, but they also give you a completely unmatched unit from your opponent, something that is gonna be able to move while shooting, so it's great for raiding, but it's also great for catching straggler armies. As you see, Erik is also raiding the Muslims eco right now. I really like that Mangadai approach over here, and I think that was the plan in game number 1 as well, but they had to change it up because of the aggression from Beasty.
Yeah, things really calming down. As you see, there's the first couple of Mangadai that have been produced and are actually on the move. You talk about that aggression. There's one Royal Net that has been spotted and is going to get pushed down by 2 Knights and 2 Scouts. Cleared out as we speak, with more Scouts coming up from the roost. They're collecting all the deer that we talked about before. Professional Scouts to make sure that you're getting that extra boost in food. Bit of a walling situation here coming out, but there might be an attack soon with the two-man Godai chasing the Royal Knights away.
Those Knights managed to get 1 or 2 kills at the beginning, and now the Mangudai are in a position where if you micro them right, they can just pick apart those Royal Knights. Notably, when you get to Castle Age, the Royal Knights receive, or the Mangudai, excuse me, receive a massive upgrade, and that's where they really become scary, getting that +2 extra attack alongside their blacksmith upgrades. Castle Age coming in already for both Rus players, so head-to-head in that department. Relics are fairly evenly distributed, so we should see both players having a reasonable chance of grabbing at least 3.
Village is in for everybody right now. We got Mango Dyson, there it is. State will move through to the Castle Age. The Muslim is also just up behind him pretty much the same time, so keeping up with one another here, the two Rus players on each side. Looks like step readout is also coming up for Beastyqt. It won't be too far away. I wonder if he's been able to spot those Mangudai, or if that information was really to him, and what his reaction will be in this case, Lita.
Indeed, that's a big question, because those Mangudai could do a ton of damage. Castle Age already on the way for Beasty. He hasn't been making any armies, so obviously he can afford that quite easily. And since the Mangudai don't have a ton of range, in fact, they only have 3.5, they shouldn't be able to do that much on the villagers, because the town center can just pick them off. Double stables coming in from Beasty, so he's going Lancers. For now, he's gonna have the power spike of Lancers, as we do have some Knights clashing into each other up north. But once you get those Mangudai numbers up high, that's where they really start becoming a force to be reckoned with. Currently 3 players in Castle Age, Beasty and the 2 Rus players.
So all the caps splitting up at the top here, trying to collect those deer carcasses that were left on the floor. Quite a few of them actually will be collected by our yellow player. 6 in total here for the Muslim, just relaying everything back home. 2 Royal Knights have been spotted, but hey, it doesn't really matter. There's already Wooden Fortress here that's pushing them back. It's a good advantage, or a good sort of way of playing for the Rus that helps them out, where, hey, even if you want to raid against them, they will always have that fortress to protect their wood line, and that usually is very good protection for you, because you got so much deer off of your hunt, so many scouts that you are kind of laying all around the map to collect that deer. It is beautiful to see, good control from these Rus players, but Mangudai are pushing up, and Beastyqt might start feeling the hate soon.
Indeed, he has been having those stables denied for some time, and now Erik is also coming in with his own Knights, so they're trying to double team Beasty, just trying to slow down that Knight production, and so far it's working out. You don't see that many Knights on the battlefield for Beasty. Slowly but surely the Horse Archer numbers will start increasing for both Rus players as they also go for relics. But at this point, the combination of those Mangudai and the Knights are cutting off Beasty from a reliable gold mine here.
Definitely so. And Readout's researching right now. He's going for the wheelbarrow, but there's a few of these Knights that are coming in to help. And this is again I guess the sneakiness of playing on this map specifically is that you have so many shallow woods that you can hide in between. It's sometimes unexpected when you pop, you see just a massive dozen Knights just charging you from the flank without realizing what's going on in that case. So curious to see how it all controls here and how it all continues. A couple Horse Archers have been spotted, and actually quite a few of them are being produced. There's some outposts that are being laid around in the brush in the meantime, and there comes in the big fight. A lot of green units from Kelazhur falling down on the floor. Those expensive Mangudai that you definitely did not want to lose. Not a great spot.
Not a great spot indeed, because now those Knights and Lancers are moving to the right side of State, and he doesn't really have a ton of Horse Archers at this point, and of course with Horse Archers you always want to retreat. The other side of the map, we are going to have quite a lot of Horse Archers for the Muslim. Killing that boar, or at least he's trying to get that, pushes him to 485 bounty, so almost that tier 3. But the biggest thing was killing all those Mangudai from Kelazhur. So as things stand, Kelazhur is at only 4 army. This is what I was talking about. It's very expensive to replenish all those Mangudai, and it looks like he's not even going for that. He's going to switch into Lancers, just like Beastyqt does.
So, more fight down the center. That's the outpost being burned down by the scouts. More units coming in to support as the horse archer mass from the Muslim is growing and growing and growing. And we saw it in our first map, how effective that mass can be. Sacred Sight's going to be captured here, and you can definitely get the one in the back in your hands. Horse archers also from State are in, trying to do a bit of damage against the Royal Knights and the Lancers from Beastyqt and RecoN. Again, reconning with cavalry all around the map, having that light brush, those light woods. You always have to watch out for flanks. You always have to be very, very careful. Now coming in for a quick burn on the mining camp with the Lancers. They didn't fire off. They will now. There's some knights to support. Get those extra bits into your economy, that food, that gold, and then fall back. Powerful thing for the Mongols to be able to do, especially when you have some calf support.
And now you see that Erik is gonna get triple teamed. He is in Castle Age, and now we're seeing State coming in with the Vols all across the state, if I may say so. He wants to play a long game here because they realize that they are behind in terms of military numbers. The problem is that by the time those Vols come up, there's a legitimate chance of a big fight to be had at the base of Erik. The saving grace is that you already have Castle Age Knights for Erik, and he aged up with the Royal Institute, Raw Bloodlines coming in. And that is going to be 80 extra HP for those Knights, something that could easily swing the battle in their favor.
Yep, definitely so. Just making them more tanky. Sacred Sight has been capped to the west, but looks like a big fight is preparing itself right now. Look at that big push down into the step redoubt. All the horse archers repositioning, knowing that the Muslim is going to face up against State in any point in time here, at any point in time. Lancers, Knights, they're all hiding around in the bushes here. A lot of damage done to State. Also, with quite a few of his units kind of falling down. He's going to keep up the chase, but what's happening at in the meantime? A few units from Beastyqt and from RecoN that are raiding inside the base, doing as much damage as they can. Any stragglers being picked off, but horse archers are all around, and they continue to do their own damage. The State, quick reactions, and will take out quite a few of his opponents' units.
This is where the numbers disadvantage is starting to show for Kelazhur's team, though, because as those purple horse archers switch back to the right side to clean up all those raids, suddenly those yellow horse archers from the Muslim are moving up, and they once again have the military advantage over here. Although now with the Teal Knights arriving, things could get evened out. But obviously the fact that the fight is going on right next to your gold mine is not something that makes things easy for Kelazhur, because his gold access will be denied, and numbers still seem to be way better for the Muslims team. Purple horse archers now coming back to get some strength on the battlefield here for Kelazhur's team, and you see Kelazhur is going to be forced to abandon that gold mine.
Yeah, Redoubt's going to have to pack up and go, and it's taking a lot of damage here in the meantime. Might be able to snipe it down. There's a few scouts to help out with the extra burn damage, down at around half HP, but the veteran Royal Knights will come in. They're just unsure when to take the fight. This is, again, partly due to the map design itself, where you never know where your opponents will be hiding. But it's right now actually kind of only the Muslim and his horse archers. He's got to be surrounded by State just behind him. They're going to be forced back with some step lancers being lost to the Royal Knights. Who's coming in here for the help? Kelazhur is also coming in support. Erik and State all just firing away at their opponents and keeping up the rush. In the meantime, there's nothing happening. No raids, no nothing. Not sure what's going on in the meantime to kind of counter this loss of territory and map position.
RecoN has managed to sneak a couple of knights behind the lines of the enemies, and I think he's waiting for those to pop out. He's healing them up right now, but he's going to pop them out of the forest. The big question right now is how do you stop this direct push, because Erik right now has 300 HP knights coming in, and this push is just looking very, very powerful. Even without the forces of Kelazhur, horse archers will move up, and when you have this many Teal Knights soaking up the arrow fire, that can help a lot. And it looks like you would just detach a couple of those Teal Knights from Erik and head straight towards the base of RecoN, which has started to be walled off in this low corner.
Yeah. All the walling in. It's pretty much all closed up and ready to go here. There's so many villagers being relocated for the Muslim just to put them in a better position, and maybe even going for an extra TC up on that left-hand or right-hand side. Sorry, horse archers are moving up, and they just keep on firing as they go. And the Muslim is going to be forced back. It's going to be sniping a couple of those knights. There's a lot of territory that has been gained. Whilst in the meantime, a big fight happening between Arveran Knights and the Lancers that can't really keep up, but at least the reinforcements for Beastyqt are so close up, they should be able to completely wrap things up. Erik has been eliminated. Not sure if that was a drop.
I think that's a drop.
Makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense because this game is quite close over here. It's
Yeah.
very unfortunate if it is a drop. So we'll have to hear a word on that.
Well, as we head on, still a fight around the middle gold in the sacred site. Horse Archers trying to do work here, but they're just outnumbered by their opponents. The Muslim has been able to mass up so many Horse Archers to his side. Hey, there it is. 2 more players falling down. Looks like it's a victory, but we'll wait until the confirmation comes in for Madmans to hear what to do.
Exactly. Looking at this one, that's one of those unfortunate scenarios where a recon act is something that you would expect from a game released in 2021, but it is just
What?
not there.
What is
So,
that? How does that work? Can you explain it to me?
you know, it works in a way that you just press the button and you can reconnect or drop game, or even just let the players pause the game or something like that. But those features are not in there. Part of the reason, as I mentioned before, why wonders are implemented in the victory conditions for this tournament is because the longer the game, the higher the chance of a crash here. It looks like Erik's game has crashed, and it looks like we're going to have a rematch here.
All right.
So
I assume just a restart with the same civs that were picked out,
exactly,
same maps and everything.
exactly. You cannot change your civilizations. You cannot change your positions even. But of course, that's probably the most fair way to judge this because this really wasn't on the side of either of these teams. You had Recon's team vote up, whereas you had just quite a decent fight taken for Erik's team. Erik already had Knights with Royal Bloodlines in. So really, there is no way to say, okay, this team had a massive advantage. So it is probably the best for everybody if it's a rematch. Obviously, it would be way better if there was a reconnect option.
Well, maybe one of these days, certain features, quality of life stuff, be great to have. So we're going to have to wait up and see how long it'll take to get the match up and running again. I would hope that would be a quick one, just relaunching your game and getting into the lobby. So might be taking a bit of time to get through it. Lita, your thoughts so far on the game, because this third map was very close.
It was very close, and that's the reason why we're going to have a rematch now that we had a crash. I think the biggest thing was now Kelazhur can see that the manga dice didn't work out as intended. And obviously, that's one of the things that he learned from this game. So now he's gonna have to reconsider that strategy, because before this set, obviously you imagine some strategies you think they are gonna work. Now you could test it out. Manga Dai didn't really work out, so you might change things up here. Obviously, this is going to give a chance to the Mongol player of Beasty to once again come in for an aggression. We're probably going to take a 2 or 3 minutes break over here though, because the players will need a couple of moments to set up the lobby, and both of us would probably get some refreshment as well.
Yeah, everybody needs a few refreshments. Just make sure that you're all nice and cozy and ready. I don't know. What do you think about that start with... why am I thinking Chugonu in this case? With Mangodai and then transitioning over to the Horse Archers before you got, a mass of them. What was the catalyst to kind of swap over between the two units?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. At this point, it looks like both teams are ready to go, though. Obviously, as I said, just to answer the questions on chat, because I do see the comments that are saying, oh yeah, one team was up ahead, that many villagers, this many villagers. This is decided by an admin, and the admin is evaluating everything. He's also watching, looking at the stats. And the thing here is that, yes, one team was up against more villagers. But is that a decisive enough advantage to just say, okay, one team 100% wins this game? I don't think so. So just like our admin decided, I also agree with the fact that this game was far from over. Maybe one team had like a 70% to 30% chance of winning, but you can't just give wins to teams like that. Crashes are unfortunate, and indeed it would be better if players could reconnect, which is a feature in Age of Empires 2. But in this scenario, obviously, especially being a decider game, it is probably the most fair that the players will be able to play it out entirely.
Yeah, true. And you know what? Maybe this kind of cancels out the mental advantage that Beasty and Strealboras had from map 2 now coming into 3. You know, given that there was a rehost in between, that there was this lull of time around 20 or so minutes, kind of calms your nerves, it gets you reset and ready for the next bout. So maybe something to look forward to for all the Ethan fans out there. Apparently, this is something that also happens in Co 2.
Yep. Company of Heroes 2 actually uses a similar, I think it's actually the same engine.
The same engine, yeah.
Yep, it's the same engine. Although there are some features in Company of Heroes 2 with the engine that are not in this one, so it's a little weird. But it is what it is. We are jumping into game number 3 over here. Once again, so bit of a countdown over here. We'll take a 2 minutes break and then we'll come back with game number 3. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are getting ready for game number 3 rematch over here. So, same civilizations, high view once again. We're going to have a new seed as well for players, so they're not exactly playing the same map generation as well. So they can't just build their strategy on the fact that they already know how the map looks like.
Yeah. You're gonna have to play it as best as you can with the way the map is. Is it exactly the same seed as before?
Nope. We're generating a new seed because obviously,
Ah.
if the old seed was utilized, then the players would already know where the key resources are at, so the importance of scouting would be way less significant. So there is a new seed being used. Basically, it is a rematch. Once again, it's an unfortunate scenario, but I'm fairly certain that if Beasty's team had one player disconnecting, they would also be okay with a restart. Like, it's something that can happen in a winning position as well, having one player crash, and then just imagine that you're in a winning position, and then crash, and suddenly you could lose the game 2 versus 3, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely so. Well, looks like our matchup is pretty much ready to go. 20 seconds left, and it could be Ethan fans throwing back in or being thrown back into this game effectively, or maybe Beastie and Strealboras can fight into it themselves. It's time. I am very curious to see how this goes. Beastie and Strealboras have a 2-0 advantage, but maybe the past bit of time actually will prove to be too difficult for them to overcome. We'll get to see. Lita, all yours.
With that being said, we're jumping into game number 3 over here. On the right side, we're going to have RecoN in the pocket playing as the French in blue. Up north, you're going to have the Muslim playing as the red in the Rus. And down south, you're going to have Beastie as the yellow Mongols. On the other side, State is going to have the Rus in purple. In the pocket, Kelazhur once again as the green Mongols. And last but not least, Erik is going to have the teal French working for him. So in the previous attempt, the Muslim had a kind of slow start when it comes to gathering bounty. Let's see if he's going to be able to accelerate the process a tiny bit more over here. Looking at the maps real quickly, it is notable that we have quite a lot of forests surrounding the base of Beastie, so his base is actually rather safe if you look at all those forests sheltering him. In the pocket, you do have a nice little gold mine to work with for RecoN. Other side of the map, a town center right next to the gold and the forest for Kelazhur. It's a very nice spawn to be at for him, but his OVU is very exposed, so that is definitely open for aggression.
Yeah, and one thing that we did not see of in the last, at least the first version of this matchup or this map, is that there was no early game aggression. Something that we saw Beastyqt in the past really being able to exploit to his advantage. Maybe this will be a bit different here. Maybe they're going to play super slow and just kind of stay back and wait up until their opponents start pushing into them, or how deep this whole circle will go. So I'm very curious because yes, you are playing with a bit of a different seed with the same civs, same positions and all. The strategy is always something that you can alter.
Exactly. Looking at the start of Beastie, once again, he is not going for any aggression with the OVU for the time being. Other side, also no production building for a Mongol player. As things stand, if you look at the bounties, the Muslim is sitting at 155, so a much faster start for him. And for State, it's only 90, so this time around, the Muslim has the head start in bounty collection over his opponent.
So how long can that be taken in? As we know that massive horse archers can do a lot of work for the Rus. So getting that extra hunt early on is going to be great for you as the Rus player. And going in for the wolf here, you'll see our player and the Muslim firing into it, trying to destroy it at the same time. A lot being collected down below. The early game is always this question of will we see any aggression? And so far, it looks quite cozy on this soon to be a bloody battlefield.
Indeed, looking at the pocket, RecoN is already going up the feudal age with the School of Cavalry. On the other side, School of Cavalry is on the way as well for Erik. Kelazhur aging up with the Deer Stones, and I would expect the same landmark to be had for Beastie. And of course, the Golden Gate will come in for both the Muslim and the State. State is at 195 bounty, and the Muslim is already at 300, so a much better start for him than it used to be in the previous game.
1 scout to the 2 right now of the Muslim, and they're just fighting one another. Actually, a lot of damage done to that scout as they're able to clean up as many deer as humanly possible here. Still at 195 for our state side, whereas the Muslim at 330. That is absolutely massive as a difference between the two. So not too bad at all for this early start for the Rus.
Exactly. Beasty's coming in with his deer stones as well, so everybody is up to feudal age in a matter of seconds. As you said, the Muslim had a much faster start with his bounty collection than he had before, and that's going to help with his castle age timing a tiny bit. Whereas for State, he's a little stuck at that 250 level, but there are still patches of huntables that he could take down. As things stand, School of Cavalry is completed for Recon in a matter of seconds, same timing for Erik and for Beasty. He's gonna be a little on the slower side with that deer stones, but I don't think he's rushing it. Previous attempt, he tried to play a fast castle style opening, and given how far away he is from the opponents, that's a legitimate possibility.
Definitely so. Everybody reaching feudal age pretty much at the same time here. Golden Gate out for the Rus, and we'll see a similar thing for the Muslim as he's pretty much done himself. Here we go. So all calm on the battlefield here as the Muslim, I say that, but he just is hunting all over the place. Up to 355 right now in bounties. And for State, actually, he's gone forward. He's got 400 himself in bounties. So actually catching up pretty well to the Muslim.
Exactly. The Muslim hasn't been able to find some more patches of huntables. There are still some unclaimed ones. And I think he's just now moving up with his scouts for that. But of course, it looks like State is going to be able to overtake him for the time being. Looks like it is going to be a Mangudai play once again by Kelazhur. And on the other side, looks like Beasty is once again just going for that fast castle approach. You see he's already banking up resources. So fast castle Lancers is the name of the game on Beasty's side.
Fast castle into Lancers, definitely something we see very often. We have seen over the past couple times that we've seen this map here, either today or in the past with Mongols in play. Oh. No walling up just yet. Professional scouts are in. A bit of damage here being done. A villager almost being knocked out. But looks like the outpost will be built out. And the Khan might be focus firing, but he has to deal with a hardened Khan on the other side too, just to keep up with the damage and the rate of fire. Great play here to push back Kelazhur as Beastyqt stays in the game, and he's got a Royal Net for Recon to support him.
Exactly, with that Royal Knight for Recon coming out here, we will have Kelazhur's... that Khan has almost got trapped in there. That's actually a dead end, so Kelazhur almost got that Khan in there, and that would have been an absolute disaster because that Knight with that single charge probably would have killed that Khan out there. Meanwhile, up north, you do have professional scouts coming in. The Muslim is ferrying in some deer to his teammate Recon here, who is out of sheep underneath his town center. We got a knight coming in, though, harassing those gold miners for a brief moment. So some pressure is put on Recon. But behind this one, I think the big thing is that Beasty once again has an untouched way into Castle Age.
Yep, and is going to allow him to get those Lancers up faster if need be. Khan is not yet eliminated. He's on 4 HP, very close to dying here. One more shot and he'll be out, and he is down. Of course, new one, I guess, will respawn. His progeny will respawn in a couple minutes. Not to worry, but definitely limiting your scouting, or at least that early game where maybe you can double up, do some eco damage.
Exactly. Losing that Khan is going to hurt for Kelazhur. Looking at the Muslim, he's at 355 bounty. State has gotten up to 495 though. So now the Muslim is busy ferrying in deer, and because of that, he's not killing them. Now, in the previous attempt, he tried to go for the boars, and that's completely legitimate. You go up to Castle Age and kill the boars with your horse archers. That can work perfectly fine. He's about to find a patch on the right side, which will give him 70 more, so I think he's fine. For now, Kelazhur's got a couple of Mangudai out on the field that should repel the Knights of Recon.
Yeah, and that actually should take them out. 6 Mangudai in total here. So not too shabby at all, with also that scout next to them. Scouts of the French side, or at least the Rus, have been able to find Recon's scout that is set up solo and collect all the deer and bring it back home, maybe at some point in this early game. Things stabilize as we seem to be heading into that castle age. State is already in a castle age here, as he had that bounties bonus set so quick for himself, and it's just now that the Muslim is able to get up close to him at 425, a bit more to get to the 500 limit.
Can we just shout out the fact that Beasty actually beat a Rus player with a fast castle? That is brutal. He almost caught up with State even, and it's not like the Muslim had bad bounty. He had like 350 when he started his age up process. Obviously, if he had a little more, he could have actually cut into this in a tiny bit. But still, that's a very, very fast castle age from Beasty here. And now he's got triple stables coming in, double lancers already coming in those. So, guess what? Now he's in for blood. But on the other side, Erik is coming in with quite a lot of knights, and the Mangudai are now coming in to support the Muslim's eco, getting pushed pretty heavily here.
That is a big fight here, breaking out. Quite a few villagers going down for the Muslim, and Erik doing a lot of work with his Royal Knights here, chased back. He still has some Mangudai also to support him. That is some pretty substantial eco damage being done here. What is it? 4 of those... 4 Mangudai, 5 Mangudais going down in a couple nights versus the, 5 or 6 villagers that were taken out. That is substantial here, and the Muslim is going to fall back in his eco. Left with 25 on economy. What is he looking for a State? State currently on the other side is leading by 8 villagers, so there's an advantage at least for one of these two Rus.
That's a massive amount of advantage there on the side of State. Luckily, with the Rus, you don't need that many villagers if you can get a decent amount of relics. So, if the Muslim can swoop up those relics all the way on the north, he could easily compensate for those losses. And down south, we haven't talked about Beasty, who, by the way, has quite a lot of knights coming in now, and those Castle Age knights should be able to defeat the Feudal Age forces of their opponents. RecoN and Erik are the only 2 players not in Castle Age, the 2 French players.
And I'm wondering why that's the case here. There's been such a focus on the knights just to get them out either for defense or offense that all those resources are going to go towards the knights. So understandable that the situation kind of ends up in where we are here. The amount of knights that have been massed up just to try to deal with this push up top, and the knights are firing down onto those mining camps, just trying to burn it down. Not enough of a mass, though, on the RecoN side to deal with them. It's 2 players, there's Mangudai with this range, and there's close melee units. Going to allow the Mangudais to fire into the mining camp and destroy it in this case, and they'll be successful with that. Royal Knights have to keep up the pressure, but hey, waiting for reinforcements, they might just be coming in for the Muslim.
Exactly, and you see there are some Castle Age Lancers already here for Beasty to soak up the arrow fire. This is where those Mangudai could come into play, retreating, but you see the beautiful surround from Beasty, getting some nice charges in. Now he pops the speed arrow as well, so he is chasing down the forces of Erik right now. Erik still with Feudal Age Knights over here against Castle Age Lancers, and now those Horse Archers from State get absolutely torn apart. This is what we were talking about for so long. You get your army caught off guard in those shadows in the stealth forests, and you could easily get 5, 10, 15 units killed.
Yep, you always have to be careful of all of those, all of that light brush, because your advantage. I mean, right now we're just talking about cavalry maneuvering from one side to the other. It's understandable that you pretty much only see cavalry being played in this case because of the size of the map. Infantry won't really be effective, maybe until very, very late game, but we haven't gone to the point where you see artillery. You'll be seeing some siege units. So this is something in the future you're going to have to be extra careful about. Warrior monks trying to pick up those relics, but one of them will be sniped down. So that's one bit of cash, or at least a bit of a loss that's been accrued here. Warrior monk from the Muslim side is going to pick up one of the relics and bring it back home to make the Abbey Trinity filled up here with 3 relics. As on the other side, already 3 relics that have been set up by State for quite a bit, actually.
Erik is getting triple team now, and this is where things could get ugly. The Muslim lost a lot of villagers, but now you see those knights will cut off the escape path for those vills, so they can't make it back to the town center, and that is going to be a ton of losses for Erik now. I feel like all the losses that the Muslims suffered from is gonna get compensated for. Down south, though, you have the horse archers clashing into each other, so ultimately, this becomes a 3 versus 3 battle over here up north.
Oh man, look at that. The huge battle happening out in the open just outside of the ring of trees. And actually, everybody kind of splitting back home in their own way. Pulling back the Royal Knights here on the blue side. And at the same time, you see the massive horse archers of the Muslim running back to their base. Something that they can feel very comfortable with is by the time they're there, there'll be a few extra horse knights for them, or horse archers for them to help out. Warrior Monk almost running his Wololo here to push the Lancers back, and he might just get cleaned up by both the Lancers. Fired down, and one more hit. A couple more. There you go. That's another one down, but the relics are all already in. They have been for quite a while. Though, the Muslim is still running back home. He's got a whole army just behind them, and he's got a big play to defend around the TC.
Exactly, he's gonna have to rally his forces. On the other hand, Recon is up to Castle Age. He's getting a castle up, and he's getting the Veteran Knights upgrade in right now. He decided to age up with the Guildhall, though, which is a somewhat surprising move here. I feel like that power spike from all those extra HP on your knights could be massive, as it looks like he's trading off many of his knights to the forces of Kelazhur at the back of State's base.
So, now, big fight up in the town center with the Muslim. He's got 14 villagers in there firing on down into the heavy cav. In the meantime, trying to close down the gap against those horse archers, at least killing as many of them as he can. But there's just not enough to buffer. There's 2 players pushing right against him, just killing off his reinforcements even. His horse archers are being pulled back, at least forcing that cavalry from his opponents into a lot of towers. But a lot of the villagers are also falling one by one. There's not much that they can do against them. They're just absolutely being smashed. Around 10 or so being closed up just before reinforcements show up to help the Lancers from Beastyqt+. Maybe a bit too late, but hey, look at that. The swing of the eco just going the other way. The Muslim on the back foot, finding himself there yet again, Lida.
The Muslim indeed taking a serious beating. On the other hand, there was quite a lot of forces going down here from Kelazhur's team. At this point, the Muslim is indeed on the back foot, as you mentioned before. He's on 3 relics, and he has lost quite a lot. Meanwhile, though, Beasty still popping out the knights, and Erik is just now reaching Castle Age. So there is still that window for the Muslims team to potentially do damage. And you do have a Beasty coming in with a couple of knights behind the base of State. State has managed to grab 3 and actually 4 relics, but doesn't have a monastery for that. He's rushing up a market at this point. Seems like his eco balance is a little off.
Yep, you want to make sure. I mean, he's been producing those knights for so long. Wants to equalize the eco and see more being sold off as we speak. Wall is actually being built up here to the south and State's base, just to make it so nobody can rush into him so easily. Get into that eco as the wood line is being chopped down, and the middle being used up by both armies, actually hiding in that light brush. Or Royal Knights is going to pass right next to the horse archers, but finally will get spotted and actually tag down in the middle. Recon, he's got to escape this position here and get more of his army up in together. In the meantime, Beastyqt is going to rush in with his Lancers just around the palisades and try to do some eco damage to State, who's been so effective this map so far, actually clearing out around a half dozen or so villagers before walking back. Even more than that, but there's 2 of these wooden fortresses that have been set up around the wood line. They're going to be extra powerful for the defense, but there is none on the second wood line here that is completely open. More rushes also happening in the south side, and extra defense arrow being popped up. Go for the eco. It's the only way, and the Lancers, Lida, they are doing so much work.
They are doing a lot of work, and we have been talking about the Muslim being beat up on their economy. State is down to 29 villagers, the Muslim is at 26, so it's dead even between the 2 Rus players now, and there is still a lot of pressure in the face of State. His entire eco is idle, and Beasty is just showing no signs of slowing down. On the other side, State is sending in his horse archers into the base of the Muslim, though. I think the Muslim might have enough here to stall this one out, though. He's got quite a lot of horse archers in here, and it's not like he has a ton to lose.
Yeah, it's definitely the case here. If he gets a few reinforcements, that might be more than enough. The few knights trying to rally off from the blue side of Recon, and it's all on the Muslim and his micro. And actually using the SimCity, the way that his entire base is built up and designed, allowing him to maneuver between the archer ranges, between the building, and keep on firing with his horse archers. And there we go. A few knights will come in to support him. It's around a dozen or so. They're going to crash into the horse archers with veteran royal knights on the other side. Also for Erik, he's going to hit the upgrade spike that is also necessary for him to tank the damage and survive. And like I say, not much damage. Yes, you've delayed things. You've made sure that the Muslim cannot collect any resources in the meantime. But the same has been happening on the opposite side of the map with State, who just now is able to get that eco back into gear.
Exactly. Looking at the overall tally, DeMusliM is down to 23 villagers, State is down to 28, so the eco discrepancy isn't that big if you think about it. Of course, State is going to have 4 relics. In fact, it's going to be 5, so that's going to be an advantage for him. But we virtually have the 2 Rus players eliminated for a long time.
So, potential fight here with the horse archers that are running back with the royal knights. Nope, they're going to back away from them as more of the towers are being cleared up in the center. A defensive keep is going to be built up here by Recon to protect the main gold vein. 8,000 gold that is sitting there, and also a bazillion outpost by the Mongol of Beastyqt to protect it. That is a power position for them to use. That is 2 gold. 16k gold plus some food with the berry bushes around, and a lot of the wood also around, even more in gold if you account for the extra gold vein just behind. This is a power position if I've ever seen one.
Exactly. Beasty is at 38 knights, and when there is no horse archers on the battlefield, those knights are really powerful. There isn't really any spearmen to fight them, and usually the horse archers are what cause problems to knights, because mass horse archers will just run away from them. But when you have that many knights, you could just directly target State down south, and I think that's exactly the plan here for Beasty. As you said, you already have a fortified position in the middle, and back at home, Recon has like 7 stables making knights right next to a keep, and if he has that keep, he's also getting that discount on the knights.
So unit production costs reduced by 20%. That is huge in this case with how many stables are in action here? 7, 8 stables that are in action. That is insane. You can keep up the production so quickly with the extra discount. Yeah, it's going to be tough to keep up with it, but another fight might be possible here. But all you got to do with the Lancers is just pull back to your power position. You got outposts you got to keep nearby. Those are going to be very tough to break through anyways.
Erik is using smaller groups of Lancers to try and raid the eco of the opponents. He has now gotten the HP upgrade on his knights, so suddenly Recon's knights are going to be much weaker. But many of those steel knights have been cleaned up inside the base of the Muslim. Some will be cleaned up here inside the base of Beasty. And Beasty is going to have a big army to jump on the eco of State with. You see, State is moving all his horse archers to the north because they need to help out Erik here. Erik already under attack by 2 players. The Muslim, even though his eco is dead, his army is far from being down.
Oh my god, Beasty. He's going to trigger the Wololo a bit early here just to make sure the conversions that nobody's stepping into the middle of the base, as this allows the villagers to get into the TC. And honestly, right now, you don't even need to do anything. Just threaten your opponents. You can burn down a couple buildings if you want. There's just not enough of those horse archers to deal with you. They cannot fire as they move, and buildings are being burned down. That wood line is going to be abandoned at some point in time.
Oh, the Bulalo could be attempted.
Fortress. Another one. He's going away, and he's going to survive. There you go. No units will be picked up. Another one also triggered. What is going on here? My computer's really feeling this. This moment is just so beautiful to watch. But that is a lot to just do. Running in, making sure you're using the Lancer is something positive rather than just sticking them at home. That's great. It affords more time for Recon, affords more time for the Muslim to rally with their troops. And up in the north, those armies are getting real big.
Exactly. Right now it's full Lancers from both Kelazhur and Erik. The Muslim only has some horse archers over here. It looks like we're missing the army of Recon. But RecoN might be going for Kelazhur right now. Indeed, he's going to find that gold mine. And I think you can commit against those towers. Just take them down, take the villagers, because that could be a lot of casualties. I feel like at this point, you prioritize defending the Muslim way less, because he's already pretty bad with his economy. Might as well just focus your forces on killing the opponents.
Yep. And this is why, you know, both service players have had their fair share of bad moments, but DeMusliM still has that, you know, big blob of units that he can use up, and still trying to move up here, dealing with the monastery. But the horse archers are in play. They come in for state, and they're going to force Beastyqt and his big band of lancers back for just long enough to get those walls up and ready. Warrior monks still carrying their own relics. Not sure why they're not back into the Abbey of Trinity, but hey, no problem. They're going to drop them off. There you go. Everybody's inside of the monastery, and there are quite a few of those warrior monks to trigger their conversions whenever needed.
Exactly. I feel like Beast doesn't even want to commit. He just wants to make sure State stays inside his base, because the Muslim is doing a beautiful job raiding Erik's base. He's been picking off villagers left and right. And RecoN, while his army is technically weaker than the one from Erik, since Erik has to stay home because of those horse archers, you can basically have RecoN play a 1v1 in the middle against Kelazhur, and he's winning that.
Very true. And you know what? You need to keep raiding your opponent in the meantime. But the big problem for Ethan fans right now is that power position with the keep, those two massive gold veins, they're being mined and nothing is being done about that. And in the long term, that's more production, that's more for you to bank up, more for you to invest also in more buildings, more positions. Because right now, there's no artillery, none of that is in. It's just pure cavalry. And yes, they can maneuver very effectively around, but there will be a point where you're locked in, and with a Rep Palace also coming up, this is an elite upgrade just waiting to happen for those horse archers of DeMusliM.
Exactly. There is going to be the elite upgrade coming in, and gotta love how the Red Pass is positioned. It's right next to the base of the Muslim. They know exactly that the Red Pass is able to hold off a lot of aggression, so it can help protect your currently very weak teammate. And the bigger thing is that now that you're up to Imperial Age, you can also get Royal Bloodlines, which is an upgrade that RecoN hasn't gotten just yet, and his opponent did. So that Imperial Age power spike now for RecoN could be massive, and DeMusliM also has a fairly sizable force here. Currently, DeMusliM is at 38 villagers only, whereas State is on 48. I think at this point, DeMusliM is just receiving a sling from his teammates, just so that he can keep making army, and I think that might be the wise thing to do. You have a very powerful eco with the Mongols and the French. Sling your teammate, so DeMusliM is a factor while he's recovering.
Lita, Beastie has almost as much, pretty much as much gold income per minute as RecoN has food. Around 1700, both of them. Insane. But a big fight is about to maybe go down. There's a bit of a chase here with the horse archers and the massive lancers, but there's the flank, the top side. We talked about the map. We talked about the fact that all of these brushes can be used to your advantage. Erik's gonna have to walk all around the wall before he engages. Look at the mass of lancers that has been set up by Beastyqt. Before they rush in, they realize that the low point here is State, and if they can topple him, if they can force a big fight, this can go well in their way. Erik, in the meantime, has pushed up to try to raid his opponent, DeMusliM, but there are some knights in defense. They might be able to push back the rest of the knights, trying to break into this wall down at the south. It's going to be a tough time. Elite Royal Knights are in for the French veteran still for Erik. He just does not have the amount of resources necessary here. And the more you keep on going with those upgrades, the more likely it is that when that fight is forced eventually, you're going to be able to win it easily.
And Beast is up to Imperial as well, so now it's a 3v3, but really it's more like the Muslim being worth just 0 and his two teammates being 1.5 each. Beast is doing good. Oh, big clash. Oh, big clash.
Big clash here with the monks also going for their own Wololo and not being able to catch much. Another one being pushed in, but all the cavalry just maneuvers so quickly all around them. Look at that mass of cavalry engaging. Erik is out of position, though. In this case, he pushes from the side. He's got knights to deal with. And then he's on veteran Royal Knights versus elite Royal Knights on the other side. But he does have the HP advantage, 310 to 270. They're able to be pushed back. Lancers are firing down and actually move closer to the horse archers. Beastyqt is doing a ton of work. Relics are on the floor from the dead warrior monks. And this looks like a quick cleanup. State is out and the rest of the team is following. GG. Well played.
Oh, the timing of this one was crazy. And you didn't even have the elite upgrade for Beasty. But really, this came down to how good the teamwork was for Beasty's team. Because one thing I was impressed about throughout this game is that the Muslim and State suffer from the same amount of damage, but the way the Muslim was able to impact the game despite being so much behind was spectacular. Because if you think about it, he was probably slung resources, but you have to have that mental state of just playing on when you're like down to 20 villagers. And he did that, and the most important thing is that if you compare the army numbers for the Muslim versus State, two players that suffered from the same amount of pressure early on and same amount of eco losses, the Muslim had twice. He received a lot of slaying, and part of that obviously can be attributed to his teammates building up a very powerful economy. And of course, the map control having in the favor of RecoN's team as well. But ultimately, I think it was the combination of them hitting Imperial Age with RecoN, with Beasty, and also the Muslim being able to put up so much army on the battlefield, despite being set back so much in eco. I really loved how his teammates were able to keep him alive and have him affect the battle. Also worth noting that RecoN had no upgrade for the Royal Bloodlines in Castle Age. He went with the Guild Hall. Now, obviously, that's going to make his knights a lot weaker, so if they ever took a direct fight against Erik's knights, he would have lost. So what I loved about them is how careful they were with their armies. They really didn't commit to any fight they didn't need to commit to, and that way they could leverage that Guild Hall, get the resources, either sling it to the Muslim, or just go up into Imperial, and once you get Imp, you are going to have the Elite Royal Knights in, and those would just snowball the game. If you look at the army numbers, that just completely collapsed for Kelazhur's team. Ultimately, Beasty having that fast castle, Beasty collecting 20,000 gold, RecoN with 15,000 as well. So that is just massive. If you compare it to the other Mongol player, 11,000 for Kelazhur, Erik with 8,000. That's probably what swung the battle in the favor of Beasty's team. Ultimately, if you look at the villager counts, that has been very, very good, especially for RecoN. His eco was just out in the skies.
Beasty was incredible. You remember that power position we were talking about with the keep and the 2-3 gold mines that were set around it, 2 massive ones and 1 standard gold mine? That was incredible. That was probably part of the reason why they were able to keep slinging eco to the Muslim, so he can keep on fighting and keep on producing in his own horse archers. When you're continuously for like, what is it, 5 to 10 minutes running 1,600 gold per minute income, that's insane. No, like, you can break the market pretty easily. It doesn't allow you to do much to kind of on the other side of your opponents to equalize in terms of economy. At the same time, State is being pushed. RecoN found entries. Sometimes Beasty also followed up. He raided State space around 3 or 4 times also. The Muslim got raided himself, but he got the support very effectively, and the eco support was so important. I don't think between Erik being on the back foot economically and State being rushed as the Rus himself and his base pushed in multiple times, there just was not much that Ethan fans could do as a team. And then you add Beastyqt's advantage in eco, and then you add the slinging, etc., etc. It snowballed real quick.
Exactly. Very, very nicely done over here. And at the beginning, the Muslim was suffering from a lot of damage, but he often felt double or triple teamed, and the result was that RecoN's eco was never touched in this game. Beasty's eco was barely harassed, so ultimately, it was basically 2 players that carried the game while the Muslim was recovering, and then once these 2 players had the economy, they could just start slinging the Muslim. So even though the Muslim had a very, very bad eco, even at the end of the game, he had like 40 villagers, he still had 60, 70 army on the battlefield. And that is just such a nice combination for Beasty's team. Even though the Muslim was very heavily damaged in economy, they didn't even bother getting up that eco. They were like, okay, just make a couple of villagers every once in a while, but focus on making those horse archers because we need them on the battlefield. And then it snowballed out of control. And with that, Beasty and the Strealboras win a 3-0 victory here, but there's a lot more to this one than the score suggests, because this was a very, very close set. In particular, game number 2 is going down in the history books.
Oh my god, that second match. I mean, I'm surprised my voice is still functional for now. I don't cast as often as I would like to due to this sort of thing, but man, that second match was so beautiful to see. That honestly, if that doesn't hook you on Age of Empires, nothing will. If you ask me, go show that to to your friends, to your best friend out there that used to play AoE, and when you were kids and you want to get them back into the game. This is the perfect game to show them, hey, your parents, your grandmother, maybe you should give her a ring and tell them, Mima, do you want to sit down and watch some AoE4 together? That would be fantastic. And this is the game to kind of get the blood pumping.